Welcome to Resist the Empire, a libertarian view of the Star Wars universe. This is your one-stop shop for news, events, and topics in the Star Wars canon. From a libertarian perspective, here are your hosts, Brian McQuaid and Rodger Paxton.
Welcome to Resist the Empire. My name is Brian McQuaid.
And I'm Rodger Paxton.
How you doing, Rodger?
Well, I've seen Star Wars The Last Jedi twice, so I'm doing really good. Actually, I've seen it 3 times. I downloaded the copy from the public library. I'll put it that way.
Nice, very nice. Well, I'm excited to be back because it's been too long. We tried to record last Thursday, and unfortunately, there was an enormous blizzard here in New Hampshire, so no one was going anywhere.
Yeah, we got, I don't know, probably a foot,
Yeah,
and not to mention the winds, and it was crazy. The temperatures, oh my gosh, the temperatures.
Yeah, it was like a hurricane, a snow-a-cane.
Yeah, right.
I don't know, whatever that is.
It's pretty crazy.
So, anyways, we had a fan event after we had seen the opening night. We scheduled to go see the movie again.
Yep.
And we had 10 to 12 people there. Like
at least 10, somewhere between there, yeah.
Yeah, so
and it was a great time.
Yeah, it was a fun time. We saw it in D-Box. It was the first time either one of us had gone to D-Box.
Which is basically 4D from what I hear. It's the same term. It means the same thing.
It's motion seating.
Yeah.
So and we were talking about it before the show started, and that was a pretty cool experience.
It was a trip. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
So if you've got motion sickness issues, I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, I was really concerned about my wife because she does get motion sickness. 3D usually messes with her, but with The Last Jedi, it didn't.
Yeah.
So in the 4D didn't either. So we were fortunate.
Yeah, Tanya usually has a bit of a problem with the 3D. The motion, though, you can turn the motion off, and that's what Tanya had to do. Like partway through the movie, she just couldn't handle it anymore. So, but I thought it was awesome. So you should check it out if you get a chance for action movies. Obviously, I don't know what else you would go see other than an action movie. But thanks everyone for coming out and hanging out with us. We went out to eat afterwards, had a good time, talked to Liberty, talked Star Wars, and had a really good time. So thanks everyone that came out. Yep, so we also got an email from Santa Claus. This was right before Christmas, and the message was, "You should be receiving a Star Wars Mad Libs book soon. Hopefully, you'll fill out some of these in upcoming podcasts."
And we found out who that Santa Claus was at our fan event.
Show supporter Daryl, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl.
Very awesome of you.
So we will probably eventually start doing that because I think that'll be fun. My kids love Mad Libs, and it's Star Wars Mad Libs. So come on, does life get better? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure, and more so on if we start doing like Patreon only like video things or something like that. That's definitely something where like kooky and fun we can do on there and take up some time doing that. So this episode's going to be a lot different than our previous 19 episodes.
Yeah, we're not going to have any segments at all. We're just going to basically talk nothing but The Last Jedi.
Yep. And we'll talk Liberty where we can we can put it in.
I mean, there was plenty of places to talk about it, let's be honest.
But we'll probably get so crazy with the movie that we'll have to keep each other in check and make sure we hit some things there. Yeah. But
and we're going to try to keep this under 4 hours.
Yeah.
That's what we're shooting for. But I mean, I don't know. I've talked about this movie for, a couple of dozen hours, and I can still talk about it some more. So
yeah, we'll try to keep it to normal podcast like that and do what we can. We're going to try and keep it in a chronological order as well. So we'll get off base here and there, I'm sure, as you get excited about things. But anyways, so we'll take it off from the top. So right off the top, we start the movie with that conversation between Poe and Hux.
Right.
And I guess that rubbed some people the wrong way, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was funny. Don't get me wrong. It was funny, but my issue with it, and this was one of the few things I had an issue with this movie, was that it kind of took me out of this being a different universe. Yeah. This is the Star Wars universe. This isn't our universe. And when you first of all, phones are in our universe. I've never seen a phone in the Star Wars universe. Right. And this whole, I'm on hold, it really made me think so much of my universe instead of the Star Wars universe. And that was my only issue with it. Other than that, it was funny. It just kind of took me out.
Yeah, and I guess if you're going to feel that way, it's best before you really get into the meat of the movie.
Right.
I guess before something like that happens, I guess would be the saving grace.
Yeah, it wasn't distracting enough that it bothered me. It was just, whatever. No big deal.
In my mind, I was like, well, I'm sure that kind of thing happens in that universe, like a lot. Like you have bad transmissions, you're having a hard time reading people or whatever. So like, I can see a plausible scenario where something like that would happen. So I was like, all right, I could buy it, whatever. So that was kind of how we started the movie, and then basically he's delaying, right, because the bombers are getting ready to come in. He's got to take those guns out first, which is awesome. And
he gets to use the new upgrade to his black X-wing, the big what do they call it, the jet thing on the back of it.
Yeah,
a specific name, and I can't. My mind's blank.
So, and actually, this made me think of something completely different. So they're trying to take down a dreadnought, right? This is this huge ship, and as Poe says in the film, it's a fleet killer, right? So for those of you who have not played Battlefront 2. A couple days before, right? Yeah. The movie came out. There was a mission, and a spoiler too for Battlefront 2 as well. So tune away for.
Yeah, this whole show is going to be spoilers. So just if you don't want to hear a spoiler, just shut it off.
Yeah. So in the DLC that came with Battlefront 2, a couple days before the movie came out, they actually ended up stealing. Plans for the dreadnought,
right?
So like it tied into this movie, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, and there was also a tie-in to Rogue One, which we'll probably talk about later, but with the hyperdrive.
The tracking.
And that's the great thing about this is that, and Pablo Hidalgo was talking about this on the Star Wars show today about how they will come up with these ideas in the story group, and they'll run them by Ryan or whoever the director is and say, hey, what do you think about this? And sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. But it's great that things like that get through by the story group, because the director, most of these Star Wars directors aren't keeping an ear down on what all the stuff is going on with canon. So it's great having that story group to do that.
Absolutely. And it's just nice to have those little tie-ins for the people that are reading novels or playing the game or whatnot.
Nerds like us that can't get enough.
Exactly. So he ends up going through lighting all those guns up, and in come the bombers, because now they don't have to worry about those like short-range cannons.
Right.
So the bombers are coming in, and well, I have a couple notes about the bombers. Maybe a couple like pointers, I guess, for the Resistance for the next time they actually have a bombing fleet. First is spacing protocols.
So they've already answered that. That was answered right away, because people obviously had that. Okay. The reason that they were so close together is for crossfire. So if they're close together like that, you've got all of these guns from the different ships that can cross and cover each other. That's the purpose of that.
Fair enough.
And if you look at the World War II bombers, it was very similar.
Sure.
They were all lined up in that certain kind of way so that they could all cover each other.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad that got answered.
Yeah.
I still think that maybe a little spacing would have prevented all of them from blowing up.
Well, another thing that would have prevented is don't arm your bombs until you're ready to drop them.
That
would have helped a lot.
Well, I have another, speaking of the bombs and being ready to drop, that actually ties into one of the, I have a few criticisms about the movie. I mean, I have criticisms about any movie, really, right? I thoroughly loved this movie, so let me put that out there front. But one of the few criticisms I have is has to do with the bombs. Why are they only on like remote detonate? Like, why can't you just do that from the pilot station? Like, so
that's a good question, and that's not something they talked about in Cobalt Squadron, the book. So that's a good question.
Yeah,
one thing about Cobalt Squadron, the book, it was for young readers, but it really did. Number one, it tells you where those bombers were during The Force Awakens, because you'd think that they would have been able to use those during Force Awakens. They were on a different mission. Yeah. But it also kind of tells you much more about those bombers and the way things go on in those bombers. It didn't mention that, though, that I recall.
I was just curious about that, because it would seem to me like that the pilot would be able to just have a button right there and station it. Just drop them. And how did the guy get knocked out too? Like
probably with all the
just like a concussion or something.
Yeah, I'm sure
all
the flak going off knocked him up against something. I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe.
I would imagine.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was kind of it. The remote detonate thing. I just was curious about that.
But how cool did it look when Paige blew up? That
was awesome. I just like how all the bombs like fell into the hole of the front there.
It was like it was made for it.
Right.
I'm made just for bombs to drop on me, right?
It reminds me of I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of. Not the Labyrinth board game where you get the marble and you're trying to drop it into the hole there or whatever, something like that. Yeah. But anyways, that was pretty cool looking. I love the look on the general's face there, the admiral's face there, where he knows like they're done for. Yeah. So that was pretty. He was like bright red too, man. I don't know if that was like embarrassment and anger, probably both wrapped into one. But
one of my favorite parts of that whole scene though was the part where the remote is falling down and it clearly goes like, past Paige, and everybody in the theater goes because they think she's missed it, it's over, and then just bam. That was well played. That was a really good cut. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So then we get, what do we got next here? We got the
Dreadnought was destroyed.
Yeah, so the Dreadnought's destroyed. The fleets, so the Resistance gotten away, right? They've made their escape. They've made their evacuation.
Right.
And Hux, because he got played a bit by Poe there and got delayed, and then the Dreadnought's destroyed. He there's an incoming call from Snoke. And
I'll get into my quarters.
Yeah, he's gonna take it his quarters, right. And that was a great scene. I love how he like powers he force drags Hux like across and then spins him around and like goes to the other side, just for effect.
Well, it definitely shows how powerful Snoke is,
right?
To
he
be able to do that
for somebody from wherever he was, on his ship.
Well, and that set up a whole lot of things, showing how powerful he is from a distance. And things. So that was a good setup.
And that's a theme throughout. This movie, really.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly one of the most powerful Dark Force users that we've seen. In the Star Wars universe, clearly.
Yeah. So we get so Finn he wakes up from his coma, right? And he's walking around with all the gel stuff spraying
Finn's out. Leaking.
I love how I love how nobody else is even like paying attention to the fact that he's like walking around like a zombie out here.
Right.
I thought that was interesting, especially with as few Resistance members as there seem to be, at least towards the end of this. And then we get what do we get? Oh yeah, the first thing Finn asks is, hey, where's Rey at? And then it cuts to Rey. Yeah. So now we get Rey on Ach-to, and so who's there? It picks up right at the end of Force Awakens.
It's the exact same spot that the very ending of the Force Awakens was.
And so Luke takes the lightsaber. And then, there's like that, couple seconds. And then he chucks it over his shoulder.
Right.
Now, I get this. You don't like that from...
I don't. I mean, it's, this is a guy who spent decades of his life pursuing truth about the Force. Yeah. He used this lightsaber, for good. There was a lot of history in this lightsaber. For him to just, have such, not really disdain, but such uncaring. Just I don't know, that's
a complete disregard.
Yeah, that's another one of the parts of the movie. Was it funny? Sure, but I think that I think it was a little bit too funny. I think that was one area where they might have gone a little bit too far.
Yeah, see,
but it wasn't terrible.
It seemed that people in the theater took that as like a much more funnier moment than I did. Like, I got like a chuckle that he did that, but it was really more of like I chuckled, but like what happened? Like, why would he do something like that? More of a concern thing. Like, why would he go ahead and do that? And we find out why, later on why he did that. But I can understand that criticism. Hey, this was. This is way too funny, and why would he just, do that? He couldn't just toss it to the side, like he had to throw it over his shoulder or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that was one thing about seeing this movie both times, is that there were many, I've been to theaters many times, and there's very few movies that actually elicits a huge response from the crowd. This one did in many, many areas, both times that I saw it. Yeah. I mean, there were gasps, there were laughs, there were, over and over again in this movie. And this was one of those areas. It was a pretty good laugh from the crowd.
Yeah.
But I just think it might have been a little too much. That's it.
Yeah, so now we get Rey. Basically, she wants to learn, right? She wants to learn what she's got, how to do it. And Luke has checked out.
Right.
Like, he's completely checked out.
Cut himself off.
Yeah, he's cut himself off. Yep, he wants nothing to do with it. And so, she's basically doing the, what is it? This is the thing where you feel like, you've been wronged by someone, and I feel like it was like feudal Japan or something like that, or like you felt like somebody stole from you or whatever, and you would basically starve yourself on their front lawn or whatever.
Well, it made me kind of think of Fight Club, where they made the members who were trying to join whatever the name of the group was, I can't remember, but they made them stand outside in front of the door for days at a time before they finally let them come in to see how committed they were. Right. It's almost kind of the same feel.
Yeah.
One cool thing that I wanted to mention here, kind of a Easter egg, when Chewie broke down the door to Luke's hut, the door to Luke's hut was part of his X-Wing. That was actually a piece of his X-Wing. That was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah. I wouldn't have noticed, I'll be honest.
I didn't notice it either. I read it somewhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, he smashed that thing down. Now, I don't know, did he not think like, oh, what would happen if Luke was behind this door? I mean, I guess he could force
superhuman
stop it,
hearing,
I guess.
Well, I mean, Chewie may have had superhuman hearing and heard he was on the other side of the...
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, anyways, that was pretty cool. But she's following him around, and he does the he gets the milk from that thing, which I thought that was hilarious. And I love like how just like deadpan his stare is,
right? And
like
he
after he drinks it,
right? And then his face, it's like he does this almost like a grin,
right.
with the milk in his mouth, and then
and I like how Ray can't look.
Right,
just to turn away.
The little critter looks at Ray and she's like, what? Oh my. Okay. Again, it might have been a little bit too much, but I know why they did it. They wanted a laugh there. I get it. But I don't know.
He does the I'm pole vaulting over this, this
and
section.
now that is something in the Luke book, the Journey to the Force Awakens, the Luke Adventures or whatever, the Luke Skywalker. Anyway, really decent book, but one of probably the most truthful of the four tales in this book was where he goes to a water planet and has to learn about what do they call it? The tide. It's basically their version of the Force. It's the same thing. They just call it differently. And part of that is him spearing these fish from this great height. Oh, okay. So he learned that, in that portion of the book, which I thought was a good tie-in as well. Another great tie-in.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. I didn't see like a 100-foot net around to get that
he had
fish.
To lift it all the way back up, I guess, for the spear.
I don't know. Maybe he went down and got it.
Maybe,
I don't know. But that was a lot of fish.
Yeah.
So they ate well anyway.
Yeah. And another tie-in was, of course, the compass that he had in his hut.
Yeah. So that was also from Battlefront. We see that with Del Mico is getting ready to blow up.
Yeah. Pablo talked about that today. They barely were able to get that in. They had like 24 hours when they had this idea. They went to Ryan. Ryan said, "Yep, but I'm going to need a model of it soon because we're about to film that." They were able to. It was like in 24 hours they're able to get it 3D imaged and get it 3D printed and then on set. So that
very
almost
cool.
Didn't happen.
Yeah, very cool. So so this is all going on. She's waiting out his door, all this until Chewie breaks it down, and then Luke drops the Han name.
Right.
Where's Han at?
Wait, where's Han?
Yeah.
That was,
And it goes to show you how cut off he was from the Force because he didn't know that Han had died.
Right. If he had been involved in the Force at all, he would have been able to pick that up. Yeah. As powerful as he was, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Leia picked it up.
Yeah. So, speaking of Leia, we get back to Leia. So we get a scene switch here, and it's basically Leia's reprimanding Poe, and she demotes him.
Right.
Because he basically got the entire bombing crew killed.
Well, not only the bombing crew, but also a lot of the
escorts. Yeah, to take out that dreadnought.
They lost every bomber that the Resistance had.
Yep. So. Yeah. So obviously she wasn't happy about that.
Well, I don't think it wasn't so much as she wasn't happy. I mean, clearly she wasn't happy with that, but he disobeyed.
But he didisobeyed what her orders were.
He cut off his communications with her and completely disobeyed her direct order.
Yeah,
I would have demoted him too.
That was deserved. Oh, speaking of, I thought that was cool when they got back after beating the dreadnought, after destroying that, how like they flew back into the ship as like really super quick right before it went into hyperspeed.
Yeah, that was really slick.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
But one thing about the whole Poe Leia dynamic is in the comics they have really been, leading up to this point of where she's trying to groom him to eventually take over the Resistance because he's going to be the one to take over when she's gone. She's said in the books, and I'm not going to be here always, and these sorts of things.
Yeah,
and so to see him completely disregard all the training she's been giving him, and to the point where she demotes him. I mean, that was just that was interesting.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring it up now because I don't want to forget later. But like, I thought it was kind of funny at the end with Holdo saying like, oh, like I like him after like everything that like had happened with like what happened there.
Yeah, don't even get me started on Holdo. we'll talk about her.
Poor Rodger. Just, I'm looking at it as just this movie. I'm separating that. Yes, I've read. I've read Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and I understand that Holdo is different in this book. But in the movie, I've just learned to go, okay, I'm just going to take the movie for what it is.
But if they're going to give us nuggets like that, make them work. I mean, that was Ryan Johnson failed there. Yeah. What's her name? Who played Emmeline Holdo failed. Yeah. I think that was a failure all around. As a matter of fact, there's a video out there of
Laura Dern
being interviewed about this difference, and she was clueless, completely clueless.
Yeah,
it's like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, so we talked about this on previous episodes. For those of you who haven't heard, the issue is the demeanor and mannerisms of Holdo in the novel Princess Leia, Princess of Alderaan. She was weird, a quirky individual, and we didn't really get that other than purple hair in the movie.
I mean, she's called. They're calling her stern. Is what do they call it? A space stern or something?
Yeah.
Because she was very stern in this movie. Well, that's completely
that's not what she was in the book.
What Emmeline Holdo was. Right. I understand that people change as they grow older, but a complete 180 like that. I mean, that was just a screw up.
Yeah, and I've probably stated before, and if I haven't, I'll say it again. The holocron people that keep track of all of the facts and stuff like that, they need to be mindful of not just the facts when they're doing, cross, not contamination, but, when they're taking elements from one media and putting it into the other media, they need to take in mind, these mannerisms and things like this, things that are less facts, but more personal, emotional kind of things like that,
I have no doubt that Laura Dern could have played that character the way she was supposed to have played, because Laura Dern is a fantastic actress. Yeah. It's just that she didn't know. Nobody told her.
Right.
And that really... Yeah, that upsets me.
Yeah,
but we've talked about that.
Yeah, all right, we beat that horse to death. All right, let's move on here. So
Poe was demoted.
Yeah,
and then that's when the First Order catches up to them after they've jumped out of hyperspace. Yeah. The First Order follows them through hyperspace, which is we talked about the tie into Rogue One. What was it? Hyperspace tracking.
Yes.
When oh my goodness,
Jen Erso is reading through the different things. Still waiting for Black Saber to drop.
Right. It will.
So
Stardust, Black Saber, hyperspace tracking was one of them.
Yeah. One of those plans was for hyperspace tracking, and they obviously completed it, and they were able to follow them.
Now there was hyperspace tracking in the Legends, Star Wars Legends, in a couple of different instances, but I believe that this is the first time we've seen it.
Interesting. So I wonder if it was like a lost. Like a lost technology or something like that.
Or they just ignore what Legends has to say.
Because it's Legends. So sorry, Legends. Hey, you got Thrawn, so. Yeah. Hey, maybe we'll get him in the Rian Johnson trilogy.
That would be incredible.
So anyway, now after they've caught up, the Kylo, he gets in his own TIE fighter, and he's going out with some TIE fighters, and they're basically attacking the rebel ships, because at this point, the First Order, they're bent on pretty much finishing off, annihilating the Resistance. They're weakened. They've escaped. There's not many of them left. They've only got a handful of ships left. I mean, this is like...
They're down like 400 people or something.
Yeah, it's a really small amount. And
by 400 people, I mean the entire Resistance.
Yeah, the entire Resistance. Yeah, and this is one of the instances where I would consider it to be similar to Empire Strikes Back,
right?
In that it is, like, in case you're not aware, this is a very dire situation.
They're punched back about as far as they can go.
Right. So they're coming in. Now the big ships can't keep up because the Rebel cruisers, they're much smaller.
Right.
So even though they can track them through hyperspace, the Rebel cruisers are able to pull away, a bit further. So they
have less mass.
Yeah. The rear shields are able to take, the gunfire from the ships. So that's why they're sending out the light fighters, and eventually they ended up getting called back as well. But the First Order knows because they have this tracking in place, they know that it doesn't matter what they do. They're essentially going to wait for them to run out of fuel. Right. So now during this, when Kylo's out in his fighter, I think it says a little something for his character that he doesn't end up firing the torpedo that takes out the bridge with Leia and
this comes into play later
and all the generals.
You're questioning through this entire movie, is there still light in him through the entire movie? And this is one of those decisions. It's like, I mean, it's like there's still some light side in him. And I agree that this was probably the first time we saw that in this movie. Yeah. That, hey, maybe he still does have some good.
Yeah. And we have, the scenes, later on with, even before, maybe it was before this, where Snoke is talking with Kylo Ren, and he has him remove the mask. And Snoke,
that's later. Yeah.
And Snoke clearly sees that he's like torn, like it actually made him weaker, killing his father. And I think Kylo knows that. That it didn't necessarily make him weaker, but it's definitely played turmoil on him. So anyways.
So Kylo doesn't shoot, but the other two TIE fighters do.
Yeah,
and
right
it completely demolishes the bridge and sucks all the leaders out.
Yeah.
including
Leia and sadly Akbar.
Well, and we'll get to that in a second. The Leia thing, I thought it was really cool that they finally showed her physically using the Force, which they talked about in some of the other books. Not Princess of Alderaan, but the other one where she was in the Senate. Anyway, they talked about her using the physical Force a little bit in some of the other books, but this was the first time we've seen it on screen. I thought that was fantastic. I just wish they had made her stance a little bit different. It looked like Mary Poppins to me. It was a little bit weird to me, but I loved the idea of her using the Force to save her life. I thought that was fantastic. Because clearly she's Force sensitive, and clearly she has some understanding of the Force and some physical use of it. So that was great. My issue with this whole scene was we didn't even learn until later, and it was a side comment. Oh, yeah, Akbar's dead, too.
Right.
What? Admiral Akbar, who everybody loves, everybody knows. He's one of the most quoted characters of Star Wars.
That was his sending out.
He's dead, too.
Yeah.
What really upsets me about this is they had a great way to send him out as a hero, and they didn't take it. Drop Holdo completely. We don't even need Holdo in this entire movie. Make Admiral Akbar
the one that do it.
Drive the ship through the
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
That would have been the way to make Akbar a hero.
Yeah.
He would have been an absolute and total hero.
Yeah.
His name would have been lived on with the Resistance forever.
Sure. I mean, his name's already made.
And it would have made fans like us who've been following Star Wars for decades, it would have thrilled us to see Admiral Akbar
go out like a champ.
We don't even see him get sucked out of the bridge.
Yeah.
We don't even see him. We don't even know about it until later.
Yeah.
Terrible mistake.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan. I love you, Ryan Johnson, but that was a mistake.
Yeah. But I mean, again, the point's driven home here that was all the leaders essentially. Yep. So except for Holdo
and Poe,
which I'm assuming she was on the other ship.
Ship.
Came over. So this just goes to show you, like, oh, this is what we're down to. I mean, it's like really getting to bare bones.
Right.
So, anyways, they pull her out of here, and this is kind of where Holdo takes over.
Right.
And she knows that Poe's been demoted. This is a classic case of, our plans are only for a need to know basis, and this is like where Poe kind of like loses a little bit.
Right.
So now before we get to that, we get the Finn trying to, at least in Rose's eyes, escape. Right. So now,
which technically he was doing it for a noble reason.
Right.
But he was trying to escape from the
Yeah. It was kind of like probably a combination of the two, knowing what we saw from him in the Force Awakens. Yeah. So
so we saw that he was one of those that he was only in the rebellion kind of by accident, and he only was involved in all of this by accident, totally by accident.
Yeah.
And so he was never a rebel, and that's why at the end when he's facing Chrome Dome,
Phasma,
when he's facing her off and he says "rebel scum," that's the first time that he's really identified.
Accepted it.
Yes, I am part of the rebellion. I am part of the resistance now.
Right.
And that was a great moment for me. I love that.
Yeah, I like that because we're gonna need new leaders. So we're dwindling quickly,
and we'll get to that. But I think we'll have many years between this movie and the next one,
Yeah.
you have to at this point. That we'll see some, we'll see the resistance grow and whatnot.
So anyways, we get Rose's introduction here. She's crying. That's how we meet Rose. Is she's like sitting on the ground crying and
so many people did not like her character. I loved her character.
I thought she was cool.
She was fun. She was quirky. She was cute as a butt. I really enjoyed her character. I don't know why everybody's giving her character such a hard time.
No, I think she was cool. I think what they did with her, basically, like, all right, she's like a what do you call it? Like she works on pipes. She's like a mechanic, She's
engineer.
Yeah.
So she was originally on the bomber. She was originally assigned to the bomber with her sister Paige. That the whole Cobalt Squadron, they're on the same bomber together, and they always had this thing that we're always going to fly together because if we're going to die, we're going to die together.
Yeah.
So they never flew a mission without both of them on the same ship. Until the mission where Paige dies.
Right.
Holdo specifically requested Paige to do some work, Leia, I'm sorry, not Holdo, specifically asked Rose to do some work on the Raddus because she needed her for something. Yeah. And that's what broke them apart, and of course that's when Paige dies.
Right.
It was, I mean, knowing that in the book and then seeing how it plays out in the movie, it was tough.
Yeah. So we get she's talking to Finn like he's a hero, right. All this stuff. He's, she's already tried to stop somebody from escaping.
And he was loving it too. He was like,
yeah, he was eating that up. And then she was like, yeah, like what are you doing or whatever. And then he realizes, it's gonna look bad, kind of thing.
And she saw his pack inside the
so
stuff.
she like shocks him out and whatnot. And that was pretty funny. I liked that. I liked how he couldn't feel anything.
Yeah,
he said, I can't even feel my teeth or something like that.
Right. Had to throw his arm over to show the watch. And,
or
not the watch, the tracker.
Yep, the tracker.
So the reason he was trying to escape, for guys who haven't seen it maybe, is because he didn't want, because there was a tracker that Leia had with Rey. It was a binary tracker. So one of them could pinpoint to the other one. And he was trying to get that away from these resistance ships so that Rey wouldn't come back from Ach-to into all of that mess. So he was trying to save her.
Yeah. It basically, she would have been coming back to Annihilation if she happened to come back at that time. So let's try to get him out of there. So anyway, so they go into it and they basically end up figuring out. They come to terms with how they were able to track them,
right?
How the First Order was able to track the Resistance, and between the two of them, his knowledge working with the First Order and hers being this mechanic and engineer, they were able to figure out.
So this goes also back to Cobalt Squadron. So in Cobalt Squadron, Rose figured out a way for small ships to basically hide themselves from being tracked. It essentially ships, when they are, when their engines are running, there are emissions coming out of it, and that's apparently what's picked up by trackers. It was able to mask. It wasn't really a cloak or anything, but it was able to mask those emissions. So if you weren't physically looking at it on scanners, it wouldn't show up. So that's the technology they used on those small ships to get them off of the Raddus. It was Rose's technology. They also used it on the bombers in the previous mission in Cobalt Squadron. Yeah,
interesting. I'm wondering if there was instead something they could have done with the emissions themselves, where they could add some chemical to it or whatever, where all of a sudden it's not tracking that. It's this isn't the emissions we first started tracking. Through hyperspace.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking out loud here. Don't worry about that. So anyways, this kind of prompts them to, well, we need to find, to do what we need to do, we need a cracker. Right. We need a slicer.
Well, they call Maz first to see, see what they can do, and she says, I can't do it. Yeah. So then she starts talking about this other guy. At Canto Bight.
Yeah, and she's like fighting while she's talking and stuff like this, and I really like Maz Kanata. I did find like that was a little odd.
Well, my issue is this is 2 days after the events of the last movie, or not even that far.
Right.
We're just a few hours, and she's already
in some other fight.
Right,
yeah.
What's
a union trade dispute or something like that.
She gets around quick.
Yeah. Well, she manages to survive for a long time, so I guess she's a good fighter. So. Yep. So, anyways, so she puts them onto this person, and he's in Canto Bight. So this is...
a lot of people had issues with the whole Canto Bight sequence. I didn't. I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved Canto Bight. It shows a part of the universe that we've never seen before, that kind of extravagance. I mean, we've seen Coruscant, we've seen, wealthiness, but we've never seen just ridiculous extravagance like that.
Yeah.
And But, people say, oh, well, the whole mission was wasted. But it wasn't. I mean, they had a plan. They had a mission that they thought was going to work, and it didn't. I mean, that happens all the time.
And that's my point that's always my point with this. Like, there is stuff in life, the best laid plans. There's a reason that statement exists, right?
How many movies are there out there that, the plan's going great and all of a sudden, bam, it's done. So then they have to improvise and redo everything. That's in movies all the time. And people are upset about that? Come on.
And you can also argue that this was somehow the will of the Force, right? Because we know at the end of the movie we have that Force-sensitive stable boy.
Right.
So, and he's got the resistance ring. Right. So.
And, let's be honest, Canto Bight looked gorgeous.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
They killed it. They did such a great job, from the fathiers to the casino floor to everything. Yeah. It was just an incredible sequence.
Oh, one thing that we would say about it, and this is minor criticism, but one thing we've talked about is, can we have some original trilogy characters mixed in with these? Like, it's always new alien species.
Instead of old aliens.
Can we have like
nice
a few, just kicking around back there somewhere?
Absolutely, no
that'd
question.
Be nice. So, anyways, this is we go here. They're kind of trying to find this slicer, and it ends up being DJ, which stands for "Don't Join."
It wasn't DJ.
It wasn't DJ.
Yeah,
it was.
So they had just found the guy that they were
right. Yeah.
And then they got picked up by the police
arrested
because they parked wrong.
Yeah, it was funny too because
so let's talk about the liberty aspect of that. They parked wrong.
Yeah, so they parked on a public beach, right? Well, I thought it was public, right? So why can't they park there if it's public?
Right, and they get stunned. I mean, the police physically stun them and physically carry them and take them to jail over a parking violation.
Yeah, it's essentially what that was.
Violation, right?
Yeah. No questions, nothing like that.
Right. And they were literally
straight. Straight to the violence, right?
And they were literally feet from the slicer that they needed. I mean, they had them in their eyes, and then all that happened. Now they're stuck in jail.
And I don't know if it means anything, but I noticed this the first time, and it didn't escape my attention either. The second time is the woman that's standing next to this guy. She notices something's going on, and she's moments from. Should I say something?
I didn't notice that.
What's that?
Interesting.
Yeah. She's turning and looking, and she's the one standing right next to this slicer.
Yeah, I see her face in my head, but I don't recall. I'll have to look for
she
that
turns and looks and it's almost all right, there's going to be maybe something more to this character later on, but we don't get it obviously. But I just thought that was interesting. Yeah. Maybe that comes into play later.
So another cool thing about Canto Bight was Warwick Davis. That's where he gets his scene. He's one of the lucky three. So if you've read the Canto Bight novel, one of the stories in the Canto Bight novel is about the lucky three. These three brothers who are tremendously lucky. Well, one of the brothers is played by Warwick Davis. The other is played by his daughter.
Oh,
which
nice.
is really cool. Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, I love that.
That's pretty cool.
And before we forget, we need to go back to this. Everybody was like, okay, who said? I have a bad feeling about this. BB-8 said it.
BB-8, yeah, very beginning of the movie.
Right, the very beginning of the movie with Poe, he said it, and I didn't catch it.
Leia was on with the droid on this one or whatever, and that's why he was saying happy beeps, because obviously he was, Yeah, so I've read about it like everyone else. No one knew for sure until that, but there were questions about that, whether BB-8 was actually the first one.
Other than that, it's not in the movie at all. So this would have been the first movie that it wasn't in if Rian Johnson hadn't done that.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. And BB-8's got some really cool scenes throughout this movie, and one of them is the one where he ends up assaulting the guards, the Canto Bight guards.
Right.
So this the drunk guy in the casino keeps feeding the coins to BB-8, thinking that he's like a slot machine.
The voice of that drunk guy, Pablo Hidalgo.
No, nice.
He talked about it on the Star Wars show.
I'll bet he was psyched about that. Yeah. Oh, I get to voice a character in the film. Yep. So that's pretty cool. And he's basically feeding BB-8 these coins constantly, and so BB-8 ends up shooting that one guard with all the coins, and that was pretty good. And I like how DJ comes around the corner there, and he's they're all tied up, and he took them all out and stuff. Yeah. So, anyways, when they're arrested, they sitting in the jail cell and they're trying to figure out what to do, and they're able to, this guy ends up breaking out once he's in there with them after overhearing their conversation. I thought it was interesting. Maybe he just wanted to get some shut eye, and that's why he didn't care that he was locked up, because he could clearly just get out whenever he wanted.
Right.
I also thought it was interesting that, like, these guards, they arrest people, they throw them into cells or whatever, but I guess they don't check anybody for anything they have on them.
Right. or he just has it hidden, because, I mean, there's ways that you can hide things.
Finn's got his tracking thing, too. Does, yeah. So, like, it's... Maybe they don't even think about it there. They're just, we'll just toss him in the cell for
drunk
reasons.
Tank, 2 hours will let him out kind of thing.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
So should we go ahead and talk about what DJ stands for now?
Yeah, well, I think we did on the last episode.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, which is don't join.
So this was one of the most in-your-face political aspects of this specific movie. His "live free, don't join" statement. Yeah. And coming from a libertarian anarchist perspective, I fully get that. Yeah. Because he's saying, hey, you've got two sides that are involved in this battle. Yeah. Both sides are doing wrong, and both sides are buying weapons from the same arms manufacturers that that are running this casino. You know, so that was a very interesting perspective.
It's also very historical as well, because there were plenty of people funding both sides of the Civil War,
every single
the
war,
Revolutionary War.
Yes.
And they were funding both sides. Yep. Knowing that, all right, well, I'm going to make out regardless of which side wins. Yeah.
Almost every war in the last 100 years, America has given money to both sides.
Yeah.
So, So I thought that was a great perspective. I enjoyed that. And a lot of people didn't like his character, especially. He was a traitor. He was a turncoat. No, he wasn't a traitor. He literally said, "Live free, don't join." Yeah. He wasn't joining anybody. Yeah. He was helping these folks out because they helped him out. Yeah. But then when he never promised them anything.
When the rubber hit the road, he's going to be in it for number one.
It's in it for him, absolutely. I don't blame him, because if I were in that position and I didn't have any ties to either side, hey, I'm going with whatever saves my neck and puts money in my pocket.
Yeah, sure.
And from a perspective of we're watching a movie and we want the good guys to win, I understand some of that disdain for him, but at the same time, in reality, he did exactly what anybody else would have done.
Yeah, and I thought where you were going to go there was a lot of people didn't like, and I thought you were going to say his stuttering, and
I thought he did a good job with it. I thought it was. I didn't have an issue with it.
All right, so I kind of like that we've got this big blockbuster movie, and anytime you have these huge movies, these great action flicks, and everything's got to be perfect. All the words have to be perfect. No one ever says no one ever no one talks like in actual real life, right? And I like that this guy just kind of breaks that.
Right.
All right, well, he's stuttering. He's a normal person. Yep. Like this actually happens.
And of course, Benicio del Toro was incredible. So he did a great job with it. I thought. It didn't take me out of the story. It didn't. No. I enjoyed it. It was just part of. It was
just you recognized. Oh, okay, this guy stutters, and you moved on from that.
I mean, he was a quirky character, and that's just part of his quirk.
Yeah.
So
So I thought that was kind of cool. Yep. He had a big crate there too when he was wheeling it out. Man, I wonder what they gave him.
There's no telling. Yeah. I don't know. We'll probably never see him again. There is going to be a one-off comic about DJ.
Oh, okay.
Just a one-shot, but I don't think we'll see him in anything else after this.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I kind of like that. And Star Wars is I don't know how good they are for it. I mean, we have characters which are gray. Yeah, I guess you would call them, for lack of a better word. They fall in the middle. They don't pick a side. We've had this throughout Star Wars, right? But we've had a lot of them that end up picking a side.
Right.
So
Finn, Han. I mean, there's
Hondo.
Yeah, Hondo. Exactly,
ends up being yep. And then even me, to the extent of Vizago as well.
Sure.
So these are guys now you've got the other guys. I can't think of his name. The bigger guy that Hondo always had some beef with.
Yeah. I see his face.
I can't remember his name, but he definitely seemed more bad. He didn't care, whereas Hondo, even though he was out for number one, he kind of ended up being a rebel in the end, which was kind of cool. So I like the idea that we can have these characters and then maybe let's have them not pick a side. This guy's clearly never going to pick a side because he's don't join. Sure. That's it. He's not.
That was his philosophy, and he never hid that from anybody. I mean, he was clear about that up front, and then everybody they're surprised that he did that. Well, sorry, he told you it was coming.
So that was pretty cool. So we get the fathier things. They grab them up, and
the fathiers were really, really cool.
I thought they were cool. I think it was cool new species in the planet in the Star Wars universe.
This one had more creatures than any other Star Wars movie ever.
Yeah, interesting.
Pretty cool.
I also I don't know how big I am on them smashing through the casino wall. Like I don't know that they would necessarily do that. Like the windows, maybe.
It may have been the only way. Oh, you're talking about the actual physical wall.
Yeah.
I see that. Yeah.
But otherwise, I liked the running through the streets. I can't remember what city that was filmed in, but that was pretty cool. Cantonica.
No, Cantonica's the planet. Canto Bite. No, I don't remember. Cantonica's the planet.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I don't know what it's some European city. I can't remember.
The actual city where they actually filmed it.
Yeah. But that was pretty cool spot location there that they done up for that. So that was fun to watch, and then they get down to the public beach, and they're going towards their ship, and they're just like, all right, we're just going to blow that up.
Right.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Talk about just...
I mean, so I don't know if
someone's private property just totally destroyed it.
I don't know if you noticed, but they talked about this on the Star Wars show again today. If you look really closely at the ship, there are some parking stickers on it for violations, parking violation stickers, yeah.
Oh, my. Well, how long they didn't even give them the night.
Right,
They were barely there. Why bother putting the parking stickers on there if you're just going to go arrest them and stun them?
Put them in jail. Yeah. Pretty funny.
Oh man, that is pretty funny.
Anyway, so the city that was filmed was Dubrovnik.
Oh yeah, Dubrovnik. Yeah, that's right. So they end up taking the fathiers out into this field, and they kind of end up this field is like taller at some points than these
but we want to talk about the three kids. So before they actually take the fathiers, they see these three kids, and they'd already seen these three kids from the binoculars earlier in the
they were like helping to train the animals,
they're basically
or whatever.
Slaves.
Yeah, they're slave stable kids.
Right.
Yeah,
and so they talk to these kids, and they convince the kids that hey, they're trying to help and all of this. And Rose gives a resistance ring with a resistance symbol on it to one of the boys.
Yeah. So and then that obviously ends up coming up at the end of the movie.
Right.
So they end up in this field, and they separate from the rest of the pack of the fathiers, and then they almost get thrown off the cliff's edge. And then
they pretty much resign themselves to being captured.
Yeah, they're gonna.
I mean,
they feel like they're gonna get caught,
yeah.
and then
it was worth it though.
Yeah, it was worth it. And then they take the saddle off, and I think it's Finn that does that, and he says like, "Oh, now it's worth it," or whatever.
She's the one that said,
she's the one that now it's worth it, or whatever. And I'm thinking, they're just gonna round those up the next day.
So this was this was another part of the book, Cobalt Squadron. So Paige, one of her things was she always wanted to see a fathier. That was one of her dreams, was to see a fathier, and that's why fathiers meant so much to Rose.
Okay, all right, yep, yeah, because there was definitely like a lot of like she was overwhelmed by these things in the movies, and so like, I guess if you don't know that, then that kind of explains like, oh, this is why she's so thrilled about these things. And so they like you said, they resign themselves to getting caught, and then who comes up the cliffside? But first
really
it's
nice
BB-8
ship,
yeah, super sweet ship, and BB-8's they're beeping, and they think he stole it at first, but then of course DJ comes down and he's like, you guys need a ride or whatever, and so they escape. And while they're in there, going back to the political thing, that they're so, and I feel like Finn was there for this, but not Rose, when they were when DJ was explaining like, oh, what do we have here? So he's going through these ships that whoever owned this ship that they're in sold these either plans or these ships to
both sides.
X-Wings, right? But you don't know at first. He's like, oh, they were a bad guy, or whatever, going through like the TIE fighters and all this stuff.
Well, they initially thought that that the ship was owned by DJ.
Right.
So Finn, because he's trying to, DJ's digging through the ship trying to find anything worth anything. Finn's like, why are you salvaging
ransacking
your own ship?
Because
it's not your ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so he ends up going to that display and showing them the different ships, and lo and behold, here's an X-Wing.
Right.
So like, this guy was selling X-Wings as well. So he is again on both sides, and it really kind of like took him back a little bit, like, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yep.
And
free don't join, baby.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't remember seeing Rose there for this. And I wish she was, because I feel like she's the one that needed to see that, not necessarily Finn. But
potentially, because her issue with Canto Bite, because she hated Canto Bite.
Exactly, she hated them all because they were the ones that kept
arms dealers.
Arms dealers, and she just assumed. But I don't remember seeing her in that scene.
I don't recall.
And she's the one I think that needed to see that. So I was like, all right. So anyways. a little bit of reality there. And so they end up going to the Dreadnought, and they're communicating with Poe during this time as well, and Poe has already been in like another fight.
Yeah, so at one point,
Holdo.
Poe tells Finn and Rose over the communicator that Holdo was evacuating the ship, and they're all flying off in the smaller escape ships, whatever. Yeah. And you can see DJ overhearing that and listening to that. So, somebody's like, how did he even know about it? Well, it clearly shows you in that scene that he overhears the plans that are going on. So that's why he was able to tell Phasma and everybody and Hux what was going on.
Right. So, and we end up going back, and I don't remember at what point this is, but we're just going to go back to Ach-to. And so Luke's kind of like, he's going to go ahead and show her how to use the Force. He's decided, all right, fine, I'm going to go ahead and
give her 3 lessons. Yeah. We never find out what the third one was.
Yeah, so...
apparently the third lesson was in a deleted scene that is probably going to be on the Blu-ray, according to what they're saying.
And actually it sounds like we're getting like 20-something minutes of stuff, so I'm actually pretty excited about that.
This deleted scene specifically is... So Rey thinks... So there are firewall works and stuff going on at the caretaker's village, and she thinks it's under attack, and so Luke says, well, you better go do something about it. Yeah. So she does. She runs over there, and come to find out it's just a big party because the caretaker's husbands came home. They only come home like once a month because they're seafarers. Yeah. Come home once a month to, mate and whatever, feast, and then they go back out. Yeah. So that was apparently supposedly the third lesson, which I guess we'll get more details in the Blu-ray.
And I can see why it got cut. I'm not exactly sure what the lesson is there, except that maybe things aren't the way they look.
Yeah, if you recall in one of the trailers where she's running down the beach kind of thing, that was cut from the movie. That was the scene where she's running to the caretaker's village. So.
I gotcha. So, anyways, Luke's trying to show her how to use the Force, and she's following his instructions, and then she closes her eyes and all this stuff. That was, to reach out and feel the Force. Yeah, that was great. So he takes it's like, I don't know, was it like a plant or something?
Yeah, some kind of a weed or something.
Yeah, and he was like, oh, do you feel that? Because she's like
touching her head with it. Yeah.
She's like, oh, I feel it. That was a great
smacks her over the head with it. That was well done. Yeah. That was funny, but to me it wasn't too much. It was just right. I mean, because that's totally Luke. I mean, he may be older, but he's still got that that kind of goofy character in him.
Yeah. So well and she's like, oh, that's not what you meant by reaching out. Right. Like he's like, no. So she goes ahead and does that, and then she gets the visions. She does the pebble thing that we see in the the previews. Yep. And she ends up, but she gets pulled to that dark pit there, and Luke's trying to like break her out of it. And he was so mad too. Like when she finally came out of it, he's like, "You didn't even hesitate. Right. You went right there, like right to the dark side." Yep. Yeah.
And this is also when she realizes that Luke has cut himself off from the Force. And this is when we first get confirmation of that, because she says, I didn't sense you in this, because she's talking about all the things.
Yeah, she's like, oh, yeah, she felt life. Right. She felt decay of death and all these different things. Yep. Didn't feel them at all. And that's where we discover, and that kind of answers some of our previous questions of why he did the things he did, at least partly, because we get into more of that later. Anyways, we get the what do we got here? Finn, Rose, BB-8. No, we already went through all that.
Yeah. So now we're at Luke. Luke mentions that the last time that he saw Kylo Ren was when Kylo was a student, and they go through the whole thing about how Luke and Kylo have different recollections of the events of that night. So first, Luke says that Kylo Ren tried to kill him under Snoke's, persuasion or whatever.
Yeah, he basically lies.
Right. Yeah. Well, basically, yeah. He didn't
by omitting the truth.
Right. From a certain point of view.
Yes. Well, it's funny you say that, because the entire thing, we get both points of view, and it is from a certain point of view.
Right. And then the final one we get is probably about as accurate as it could possibly be, because you get 3 different scenes. You get Luke's side, Kylo's side, and then Luke, coming back and saying, okay, well, this is really what happened. It's probably the most accurate. Yeah. So and that's essentially, he goes into the hut,
And because he senses Kylo, he's strong with the dark side, and he's afraid of what will happen. You know what this reminds me of? This is like the whole preemptive strike BS that they like to spout out.
Right.
Like, oh, it's a preemptive. No, it's just a strike. Right. No, you're going to hurt someone.
Right.
Yeah, essentially. And that's kind of what it reminded me of. But he didn't do it, right? So like he was going to.
It was only a split second that he had the idea of actually
that he was going to do it, and then he didn't do it. But then, to Kylo, he's waking up in the middle of the night and seeing
this. His uncle over there with a lightsaber.
Right.
So I'm gonna grab my lightsaber too.
Right. What are you going to think? So it's the actions are justified by Kylo here, I think. Even in the end where we see, it's not nearly as bad as what Kylo paints it as, it's still... it justifies why Kylo did what he did.
It justifies Kylo
at least
defending himself.
Yeah, defending himself. It doesn't just, the further stuff.
Right, the killing of the other students and the burning down of the temple doesn't justify any of that.
Right.
But defending himself, absolutely.
Yeah, so anyways, that was some really good acting, I thought, between those two in those scenes too, especially that one face that like Luke does for Kylo's scene.
Right, because he looked just horribly angry and just evil. And it was really well done. I mean, it just goes back to Hamill's acting. The dude is an incredible actor.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. He is very underrated as an actor.
Yeah,
I love him.
Yeah, so we get so that during this scene,
the connections between Kylo and Rey. We need to go there.
Yeah, to even get to this point, we have that connection where somehow Kylo and Rey are seeing each other, but in their own surroundings. Right. They're not there, but they're like seeing them as if they're there.
At the very beginning of their connection, Kylo says to Rey, "You can't be doing that because this would kill you."
Right.
This sets up later for Luke.
Yeah.
Because everybody's, why did Luke die? He was so powerful in the Force. Blah, blah, blah. He died because using that amount of
power, Force power.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, they tell us in the movie right there.
Yeah.
People don't pay attention. That's whatever. That's part of it.
No, it's
my
spot
thing
on.
is I've spent 8 hours probably surfing through the internet, reading every article I can about this movie.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually haven't really done that. I just haven't had time. But I've thought about it. I think about all these things, myself, and I'm like, all right, well, the connection, it's obviously not Kylo because he's asking her about it, right? So like, all right, well, we know it's neither one of them, right? So and then we end up being told later that Snoke is the one that's doing it. Though we have questions about it later on. Do you not have a question about it later on? Because they see each other again at the very end of the movie. Oh. That same way.
Well,
maybe not. I mean, it could be cut that way.
It may have just been a cut. Yeah. I'm not certain that they do.
Right.
However, so there is some speculation that they already had a connection because of what happened between them and the Force Awakens when he was tormenting her, trying to get the information out of her head about where Luke is.
Okay.
That there might have been a connection built between them during that. And that Snoke was able to tap into that. Yeah. And that's what made it so easy to connect them together.
That's possible. I can see that.
It certainly is. Yeah. I've heard that. But yeah, I think at the end, I don't think that they were. I think that was just a cut. I don't think they were actually seeing each other.
It's possible. Yeah. So it's now this is a new thing, right? I mean, this is like the people that watch like Game of Thrones and watch like video and vlogs and like shows on this, they have the thing called the Weirwood.net or whatever that they call it with Bran. Yeah. He like sees through the trees or whatever. It's kind of like this thing. They've got this connection where they could talk to each other without anything else, present, just being there.
And I have to say that the way that they did that was just incredible looking. I mean, I don't know how they filmed that, but the connection between the two, it was just really well done. It was really simple, but you really got the idea of what was going on. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and it was kind of cool too. Like the sound was almost like as if they were in a tube,
right?
Or like
when you were seeing Rey, you could kind of hear some of the stuff going on Kylo's side and vice versa. It was really
cool
really
audio stuff going on there.
Really good audio.
Yep. So anyways, we got that connection going on, and
so at one point, Luke tells Rey about his side of the things, and then Kylo tells Rey his side of things and one of their connection vision things.
Yeah. So I think isn't Kylo's first? I'm trying to think.
Was it Kylo first? Oh,
because it forces his hand, right?
I don't remember now.
No,
I honestly don't remember now.
But to tell his story or whatever, I was thinking. So, anyways, we get what else do we got going on here on Ach-to? Let's see. I keep going back to the caretakers because they just crack me up so much.
Right.
It's like we've kind of skipped them in our timeline, and there's some things we'll come back to.
Yeah, let's talk about the coup. So, when Poe finally finds out what Holdo was trying to do, he performs a coup, basically.
Because he's afraid they're basically sending them to their death.
Yeah.
Because to him, it just looks like we're just going to keep going forward, and they know they're going to run out of fuel, and when they run out of fuel, well, we already see it happening, right, at this point. So ships are getting destroyed because they're running out of fuel, so they're sending their escape craft forward to the ships that are still moving along, and then basically abandoning the ships that are running out of fuel.
Right.
And actually, that brings me up to another point. We don't really get much God stuff in any of the previous 7 movies.
Other than the Force stuff, the religion stuff. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, like the word God. I can only remember in one specific instance, and that was where 3PO was. They thought he was a god.
Right.
So in this movie, twice they use the word Godspeed, and I thought that was interesting. Godspeed Rebels.
Nice.
The admiral that, after they send the escape ships in, he's like, Godspeed Rebels or whatever, and like before he gets killed, and Holdo says it as well. Kind of like to herself before she basically obliterates the First Order.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because we don't really hear it. Now, granted, it was Godspeed, but it's kind of one of those words that you don't hear that in the everyday vernacular.
Right.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I didn't notice that. So going back to the coup, he basically, with Billy Lord, who is Princess Carrie Fisher's daughter, who I gotta say she did a really good job in this.
Yeah, I thought
she didn't have any speaking parts, and her part was so bit part in the Force Awakens that I thought maybe she's just a terrible actress, and they just threw her in there. But she really did a good job in this, I thought. I was pretty pleased.
Yeah.
And she actually had a promotion from the last movie to this one. She got a
a lot of people are going to get promoted after
she
this
got a
movie.
battlefield promotion to a Lieutenant Connix. So it was really good to see Billy Lord, stepping up in the acting role. I'm hoping that they really, focus on her in the next movie quite a bit since, Carrie Fisher's gone.
Yeah, and I hate to redirect the conversation from the coup again, but since we're talking about her and Leia's character and, her using the Force like she did in this movie, it was pretty clear, like kind of the path that they were going to go on for 9, where Leia was going to be using the Force in some manner, right? I mean, after she did what she did, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That's going to be my biggest question until Ep 9 is what are they going to do there?
Yeah. So during the mutiny, Leia is actually the one that stops the mutiny. She gets out of her, her deathbed or medical bed or whatever.
She comes to
and shoots Poe with a stun gun.
With a stun gun,
which I thought
he's
was
like Leia, like he's like relieved to see her, and she just shoots. Oh, that was great, classic vintage Leia.
It was fantastic. So of course then Holdo's plan goes on into effect. And that's when we get, later, Leia and Holdo are talking about, I really like him. I mean, well done.
Yeah. So they're basically getting their escape ships ready, right? What they're gonna do is they're basically masking these ships.
Right. They're using Rose's technology that she used to mask the ships,
mask the escape ships.
But they have to leave one person behind to
operate the ship,
fly the Raddus.
Yep.
And of course that ends up being Holdo.
Yep.
Which, I'm telling you, it should have been.
It should have been.
Should have been. Would that not have been cool?
That would have been awesome. I would have loved it.
Yes, I mean Holdo, who's this character that we know nothing about.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't care about.
Yeah,
she doesn't give us enough in the story to ever really care about the character much.
Yeah.
Man.
I understand that. Hindsight's 20/20 as well. Too.
It is, sure. No, I mean, look, I am. If I had made this movie, it would have been junk. It would have been trash. Am I picking this thing to death? I am nitpicking it to death. I know it.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's what we do. We're Star Wars fans, right?
But that still would have been really cool.
Yeah.
But Rian Johnson knocked it out of the park. Period.
Yeah. Yep. So let's go back to we're on.
Rey confronts Luke over her new knowledge from Kylo about what Kylo felt happened between Kylo and Luke.
Yep.
And they get into kind of a physical fight. I mean, she grabs her staff, and he blocks her staff with something that he pulls off from from one of the buildings or something.
Oh, here's a question, right? So she like knocks him back and stuff, and he like falls, but then doesn't hit the ground, right?
He
so
uses the Force to catch him.
Okay,
that was cool.
So it was him using the Force and not her.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
well, they showed his hands out like that. So I assume. I mean, I only assume, but
because I thought it was him that did it, but
she
I was
still
like
attacking him though, so I can't imagine that it was her.
Yeah, but she stopped attacking when he fell down, essentially.
Okay, you're right.
So that's why I was like, oh, did she do that or did he do that?
And the reason he fell down is because she pulled the lightsaber over to her and held that up, like she was it, so he fell down.
Right.
Yep.
So that was a pretty cool scene.
It was, but I mean, I think that again, it shows her propensity to go to that dark
place.
To
the dark place,
just like that, and part of that's because she hasn't any training.
Yeah, I think that's part of it as well, but perhaps her connection's so strong with it that she can kind of go back and forth really quick as well, right? Because, I mean, when she fights Kylo, she still doesn't go with him at the end, So for someone that goes to the dark side as quick as she went to there, she didn't really hesitate to... she tried to pull the lightsaber. They pulled the lightsaber apart there, and that was pretty interesting. So
then after this attack, Rey decides to just leave. So she goes and gets Chewie, and they're
they're done.
They're getting out.
Yeah.
So then Luke walks to the tree, and we haven't talked about the tree yet.
Yeah.
So the tree where all of the Jedi ancient texts are.
Yes.
And those books looked really cool. I hope it would be great.
If they
do
some like reproductions or whatever.
I would love to have
keep it. Yeah.
Those were beautiful, man.
Yeah, good little like set replicas. Yeah.
So he's going to the tree to burn it. Luke is.
Now the tree is they have these ancient Jedi texts in them. Rey was in there earlier,
right? With Luke.
Which prompted a conversation with Luke, and we didn't even talk about that. Like, who are you? All that stuff, and so. So that was really cool. So he's going to burn it now, right? He's like done. The Jedi need to end. He's in total like Jedi death mode.
And then Yoda Force Ghost shows up.
Yeah,
which was I knew we were going to see a Force Ghost. I just wasn't sure who would. I thought it might be Obi-Wan. I thought they might try to pull Obi-Wan in there. Yeah. But it was cool to see Yoda.
Yeah,
it really was.
That was great.
I guess for them to bring Obi-Wan back. I mean, what would they do? Bring Ewan McGregor back? But Luke never saw Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan.
Right.
So that would have been tough to pull off.
And I guess Frank Oz was at the premiere.
Yeah.
So, like, there were questions there.
Yeah, there were questions. Yeah. Like, I don't know what you're talking
about. So anyways, so the best part about that is him just showing up basically called Luke's bluff. Like, without even Yoda saying anything.
Right.
Like, he called, basically just showing up, he called Luke's bluff, and Luke wasn't like, you knew it, because as soon as, like, he knocked him away, Yoda, like, set it on fire, Luke was like, oh, no!
Yeah, Yoda set it on fire with lightning. So.
Right. Which was awesome. A Force Ghost showing that kind of power in the physical universe, I thought was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was. And it was also, because, Luke, after that's on fire, Luke was like, but Yoda, the text, I mean, all the books are in there. And he says, Rey has everything she needs with her.
Yeah.
Which we find out later. The reason she has everything with her is because she
had the darn books.
She stole the books.
Yeah.
They're in the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. So, and I like how Yoda, like, questions about, like, had he read them or whatever, and he was like, he's like talking about real page turners or something.
Yeah, real
like
page turners. Yeah, right. That was great. Yeah, well, that was a great scene for Yoda. It was well done. Some people had issues with the way that he looked. I thought he looked okay. He looked more like the puppet Yoda, clearly, because I used a puppet.
Yeah.
I assume they did. It certainly looked that way to me.
Yeah.
It looked like the original trilogy.
It looked
Yoda
like kind of like a mix between the two almost.
So
on the back on the main First Order ship there,
Finn, Rose, and DJ.
Finn, Rose, DJ, and BB-8 is with them as well. Let's not forget. Now DJ gets them into the room that they need to basicI shut down the tracking system.
Only after they disguise themselves as Imperial officers.
Yeah.
And BB-8 tried to disguise himself as a mouse droid.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but the world's biggest mouse droid, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So So anyway, and that just shows how much people pay attention in like big facilities like that. Is like this thing's like rolled around. He like hit that first order trooper, and like these guys like seriously. No. So anyways, he gets them into the room where like they can shut the tracking down for like 6 minutes, give them enough time to hyperspace and get out of there.
Right.
And before it comes back on at the next turn or whatever it's called, where the next checks. So they get in there, but it ends up just being a trap anyway.
Right.
DJ, this is where DJ, pulls his other hand.
Well, the reason they got caught is because BB-9E.
BB-9E. So
he saw them and realized that they weren't supposed to be there because BB-8 was in this trash can.
Right.
And he saw that was odd. So it was BB-8 that actually called them. DJ didn't turn
them in.
DJ
didn't. What DJ did was he gave up the plans
after he was already caught.
Right. And he was saying like that, and that was like his bargaining chip, right? Because he doesn't want to be involved in this anymore now.
Yep.
So that all happens. They're kind of all in custody, and we get the Phasma's got him, and they're not going to kill him. Phasma wants to make him suffer, etc., etc.
At the same time, all this is going on, Rey has jumped into the
Snoke's ship. They're in the Millennium Falcon, and she's in this like one man kind of
almost like a coffin, but it's an escape pod for the Millennium Falcon, and it shoots her directly to the landing bay.
Yep, to the landing bay there
of Snoke's ship, which is called the. Supremacy.
Yeah.
So now she's on the Supremacy as well, and of course, as soon as the first person that she sees on the Supremacy when she's in her pod is Kylo Ren.
Yeah. So all these scenes are really cool.
It was a really good progression of the movie. I mean, the cuts were great. It was really, really well done.
Yeah, like you almost get this look from her, like, oh man, did I just like do the wrong thing here? Kind of like as soon as she's
immediately captured, and then after she sees Kylo, she sees a trooper with the
shackles. Yeah, so. They're in the elevator going up. He's not really saying much of anything.
This is very reminiscent of Luke and Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right on with that. Definitely a cool correlation there. And so they get out, and it's funny because Snoke like trash talks, Kylo Ren leading up to this point. And now he's like commenting on him on a good job by him, etc., for like bringing her in, even though he knows he's the one that brought him in.
Right.
Brought her in. So like that was kind of funny to me. Like, oh, maybe he's just trying to build him back up again.
Well,
if she
Kylo
doesn't
is
go
the
my
one
way.
who led her to believe that he might be leaning towards to the light side.
That's fair.
So I mean, he was responsible for that part of it,
right?
Because I think that if he had been full on darky, she never would have come.
Right. That's true. So they get in there. Kylo's immediately kneeling. Then we really see just, again, how powerful Snoke is.
Yes. That scene that we saw the picture of in the trailer of him holding her up.
She's like bent backwards and just like looks like she's in agonizing pain.
It was a great scene in the movie because it just looked horrendous. I mean, it looked torturous.
It looked like she was seconds from breaking her back.
Yeah,
essentially,
it was a really well done scene.
I like she wanted to keep fighting, and he was commenting on how feisty she was and all this.
She went to flicker around.
Yeah. She went to like grab the saber and like he just sent it like spinning around to the back of her head, smacked her with it, and brought it back to him. Yeah. And then that, of course, that came into play. He's got it sitting right there, and
like Palpatine did with Luke's.
again, because it doesn't. It ends up being one of these situations where it doesn't necessarily matter how powerful you are. It matters kind of how smart you are.
How devious.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that was very devious of Kylo. He did exactly what he knew Snoke would be looking for. Right. And he did it in a way that it tricked him. And it was well played.
Yeah. So,
But let's be honest. Kylo outsmarted Snoke, period.
Yeah.
Outsmarted him.
Yep. So this seems to be kind of even though we didn't see it take place on screen, it's kind of like what it would make me think of if I had seen it on screen between Sidious and why can't I think of his name? Plagueis. So Darth Sidious, Plagueis.
Right,
so he killed him.
Right.
So he outsmarted him essentially in a way, right? Because he would say like, oh, he was like the most powerful, and the only thing he was scared of was losing that power, that kind of thing. And so I think he had to outsmart him, right?
Kylo's
to beat him.
clearly not as powerful as Snoke in the Force. No hands down. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yep.
So he had to outwit him, and he
right.
did. And it was well
and it was
played.
a really cool scene.
It was a really great scene, and I'm glad. Snoke still lives. No, they clearly showed Snoke's tongue hanging out.
Yeah.
And
it could have been a vessel he was using.
Snoke
and blah, blah, blah.
clearly dead. Snoke. Everybody's like, oh well, I wanted to know all these things about Snoke, and yeah, it would have been cool. And we will probably eventually get a book called Snoke. I guarantee you we will. We got the Phasma. We got the Thrawn. We'll get a Snoke book or a comic run.
A common complaint, but people never questioned it. Or if they did, they forgot they questioned it when, during Empire and all that. Because we didn't know anything about the Emperor at all.
We had no idea. We didn't even know anything about the Emperor after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
We didn't find out until the prequel trilogy about what was really going on with that and, of course, some of the legend stuff.
Yeah.
But Snoke was inconsequential to this story. It's not Snoke's story. It's Kylo's story. It's still a Skywalker trilogy.
Right.
I mean, a Skywalker story. And Ben Solo is the Skywalker. Not Snoke. It's Kylo's story.
Yep.
So, yeah, Snoke is a cool character. It would have been great to know more about him, and we eventually will in some of the other materials.
And I think
he didn't matter.
We saw him as long as we did dead like that because they didn't want like a Darth Maul thing again.
Right. And
not that it wasn't awesome, because Darth Maul is awesome and his coming back was awesome. But.
That Ryan was thinking about that the whole time when I'm going to cut this guy in half. That he was thinking, okay, we've got to make it clear that this guy's toast. And I think they did a good job of that. I think anybody who's holding out hope that he's still alive, I think they're wrong.
Yeah, yep, I agree with that. So basically, Kyle. So
and then they had the battle. Oh my.
Yeah. So Snoke knows that. Yes, Snoke knows that. All right. Well, she's clearly not going to just bend to my will, like Kylo is. So this is
Kylo to kill her.
Yeah. This is not going to work. So he has Kylo kill her. He turns the lightsaber, towards her because he's like, turn the lightsaber towards her, whatever. Right. And he's turning the one next to him at the same time. And I just love that scene how it cuts into him and he brings it forward.
And Kylo
Rey catches it. Yeah,
that was really cool.
That was so awesome. Yeah. And I love it. The back-to-back scene. We get the Praetorian guards coming out like, oh, they like just killed the supreme leader, so now we're going to have a fight. And these guys weren't chumps either.
No, they were not. And you get to you read in some of the visual guides, you really get more information on these. These guys are total badasses. I mean, they are really cool characters. Their weapons are characters. There's 2 of each type. I think there were 8, so there's 2 of each type. They really great stuff. And the fight scene was just. This is the fight scene that we wanted to see with the Emperor's Crimson Guards. I mean, this is what we always wanted to see those guys too.
It was still worth it to see Yoda toss those guys like ragdolls.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say about this, and it did give me pause, was all right. Well, why didn't they use the Force on these guys? And I was actually more than some of the other things I saw in this movie. This was actually more easier to answer than I thought it would be. Those 2 were probably nearly drained of a bunch of the energy. Everything it took for Kylo to mask what he was doing to kill Snoke, and she had just taken a beating.
Right.
So I'm like, all right. So I can see like why maybe they can't necessarily have their full Force potential, and that's why this physical battle took place.
And these guys were just tough too. I mean, let's be honest; they were just tough. I mean, the fight was really good,
and we've got a precedent for people having a resistance to Force powers, right?
Sure.
We get a lot of that more with the kind of like, all right, I don't fall to the Jedi mind trick kind of thing, but maybe these guys had like more of a defense
possibly. But a couple of the best parts was when Rey threw her lightsaber to Kylo and he catches it and activates it immediately. It gets that guy right through the head.
I actually like the one right before she throws it,
where she drops it
and catches it underneath. Yeah,
that was great.
I
too.
thought that was cool. So really, that was a great way to end it.
That was some of the best choreography. Now, clearly, I have to eat some humble pie because I was wrong. I thought that they were going to be fighting the Knights of Ren.
No.
I was wrong.
You originally thought that. Now, I remember this because I was more wrong because I thought that they would be fighting the Knights of Ren. You ended up changing your idea. After we saw like the shots of them like working out or whatever with the
staffs and whatnot.
The what do you call the guys? The trainers.
Choreographers.
Yeah, the trainers and choreographers with that stuff. You were like, I think it's going to be those Praetorian Guard guys.
I don't remember that.
Okay. You ended up changing it. Well, and I ended up sticking.
I can't eat humble pie.
Right,
okay,
I'll eat the humble pie, right? So
I'll
think,
serve it to you.
I think I stuck saying, I think it might be the Knights of Ren. Okay. So,
well, either way, that was.
But we may get them in the next movie, right? Knights of Ren.
We've got to, right? We've got to,
because now he's going to want his own little fighting force.
And it's certainly possible. And some people are saying that the Knights of Ren became the Praetorian Guard. However,
that's why I was wondering.
There weren't 8 Knights of Ren.
Yeah,
unless they brought 1 or 2 later. Right. And these guys didn't use the Force at all.
Right.
So, and they didn't have lightsabers, and students from Luke's camp would have had lightsabers.
He's got dibs on them somewhere, and
So I don't know if we'll see them or not, or if it's just we may see that in some side material.
So there was something that happened where we need to talk about this because you want to eat humble pie on this as well with the parents thing. Where Kylo's like, your parents are nobodies. And before leading up to this movie, I was like, I think they're no one. And so when we first saw this, you were like, you were right on that one, But after seeing it a second time, I'm almost like, I'm like, I don't know that I can buy the story. And
misdirection.
Yeah, the reason I say that, there's 2 things, right? He said that they sold her for gambling money or something. Well, when she's watching this ship fly off, it was a really nice ship that's flying off. She's screaming like, "Oh, where are my parents?" And he also said they're like buried in a pauper's grave there. So who's leaving?
Well,
Is that them leaving?
Did he say
what
they
is
were
going
buried
on?
In a pauper's grave
I
on
thought
Jakku?
he said that they're dead and buried on Jakku. Is what he said.
I don't recall specifically.
I swore that's what he said.
It's certainly possible. I don't recall that.
And if that's the case, and we'll try and get confirmation.
Well, but
on that.
look, how memories are. Memories are horrible.
Sure.
And you've got to be, we got to be honest. There are 2 different people making these movies.
Yeah.
Ryan may have had a completely different vision than JJ had on that, and come on.
Yeah, I'm just playing. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate with myself here, because essentially, I think there's maybe a 5% chance that her parents weren't anybody.
Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't remember R2-D2. Come on.
Yeah,
there's issues in Star Wars.
The reason I bring it up is because people will say like, on one hand they'll be like, oh, Kylo's just like, he's like the kid that acts out, and that's like his character or whatever.
And he could very well have been just manipulating her with that information.
Right. But, if he isn't, just that kid, well, he could very well be lying, And, I think his character's deeper than just some kid.
I don't think that he is above lying to manipulate somebody to get something out of them. I don't think that I do not disagree with you. I think that certainly could be something that we could see JJ do. Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
I don't think nobody.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go there, because I think that if they were going to do the reveal, they would have almost had to have done it in this one.
Yeah.
Because the next movie is going to have so much stuff to tie up.
Probably.
That's one they don't want to mess with.
Yeah, yep.
But it would be cool to see that. I'd still love to see her be a Kenobi. That would be so cool.
Yeah,
but whatever. Well, she's not. She's a pauper's.
She's Rey.
Right, she's Rey. Which, whatever. I'm okay with that, I guess.
She's Rey with no last name.
Maybe Rey is her last name.
Possibly. Yeah,
so her first name could be Crait. Crait Rey. Anyway. What
do we got here? What's going on? We got through Snoke. We got through that fight. They're trying to get out of there.
Kylo takes over. He's now the Supreme Leader.
So Hux tries to kill him, right?
He does. So we see he doesn't. He was thinking about it. Then Kylo wakes up. Hux is a little bitty coward.
Let's
be honest.
He's a coward.
Yeah, but. The guy who plays him,
he's awesome.
Harry Potter too. Did an incredible job.
Yeah.
Incredible, loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed his character in here, especially later on. Well, I just like that dynamic's still there. I like because they could have easily killed him off, and they did not.
Right.
And I like that dynamic will be there for the next movie, because some of the stuff I thought there's some comedic moments, and then there's just some like all right, it's you got to have your leaders as well, right? We had this. Look at the how many admirals we had around. Grand Moff Tarkin. Right. All these guys, Admiral Mahdi, Piet, all these guys. So all these people were around. So we've got to have these kind of officers and stuff there.
Yep.
So I guess we'll go back to the Holdo spot before we revisit Rose and Finn, because of what kind of happens to interrupt the Phasma thing. So
yeah, sure, go for it.
So they, after DJ gives up the goods on what the Resistance is doing, they now know, there's ships.
So they rescan and do it in a different way, and they're able to find the ships. Yep.
Yeah, so now they're targeting the escape pods, which have no way of defending themselves. They're trying to escape to Crait, which is also another cool callback, because that's where the Resistance actually started. The Rebels, pretty much started in Leia, Princess of Alderaan.
And also in a comic series, Storms of Crait, or not a series, it's a one-shot, which I've got, mine should be here next week. I haven't read that one yet. So
so that was pretty cool. So they're trying to get to this planet that's nearby, and they have no means of protecting themselves, and they're getting taken out one by one. And during the second viewing of this movie, I actually noted how many were exploding because they said there was like around 30 of them, I think. And then, I don't remember the count, but I was keeping count to make sure they didn't mess that up, because I was like, I better not hear more than 30 explosions or more than 28 explosions, because there's obviously a couple ships that had to make it, right? So, and he was, because it's going on like while the Snoke is still alive and all that stuff. Yeah, but it doesn't
go on that long, because I mean, as all this is going on, then Holdo.
So Holdo, she turns the ship around, and she basically sets it in a hyperdrive right through the entire First Order fleet.
I mean, she had already, she
resigned herself to dead already.
So she might as well go out with a bang. And did she ever? I mean, visually,
best 10 seconds of silence I've ever heard in a movie
hands
ever.
Hands down. I mean, it was,
which we were talking about before we started the podcast. I did not think that was 10 seconds, but you get a couple different scenes there, and I guess you're just so taken aback by the fact that you got silence. By the time that you realize the silence is over, like it's music and noises have started again.
And in both screenings, everybody was just dead silent for about the first half of that. And then everybody starts like, then you hear this audible like gasp about halfway through this silence. And then when you hear the boom, it's like everybody's like, whoa! Both times it was the exact same reaction.
Yeah, it sounds like the like a bigger take on the sonic charges.
Right, very much so,
Yeah, so cool. Still one of my favorite parts of that movie.
I want to shake the audio engineer's hand, and I want to shake Ryan Johnson's hand for that. Let's be honest, 10 seconds of silence in the middle of a movie, that's brave. That could have flopped big time. That could have been just miserably bad. Matter of fact, some theaters were having to post, I read this today, were having to post signs saying, hey, you're going into this movie, about 1 hour and 52 minutes in, there's 10 seconds of silence. The movie's not screwed up. Just deal with it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, speaking of, the first time we saw it, the movie got screwed up.
Yes. Yeah. Which and we didn't talk about it. I don't think we did on the last episode. Was the best part was, so we're at the scene where BB-8, he just got done shooting the coins at that security guard, right? And the movie it completely screws up, right? It goes black or whatever for 20 seconds or something.
Yeah, it just completely does.
Right, and it comes back on, right? And it takes the entire audience. Now this is opening night, okay?
Right. Yeah. This is the very first showing in New Hampshire.
First showing.
There's no earlier showing in New Hampshire than this movie.
So it's 10. It takes everyone about 5 to 10 seconds to realize, this was 5 minutes ago that
we're jumped quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So half the theater gets up and runs out because they're like, I gotta go to the bathroom, right? And everyone knew they had a chance to go and come back before it got to the part again.
Yeah. So I was one of them, because I was not getting up from my chair. I would have peed on myself, I think, before I got up, but I had to go so bad. Dude, so when it took me about 10 seconds to realize that this was 3 or 4 minutes back. I'm like, okay, I'm running. And
funniest thing
I'm
I've
a big
ever
old
seen.
boy. I ran.
Yeah, funniest thing I've ever seen in the middle of a theater like that. Oh, it just cracked me up so much. So I don't even remember where were we at. We were talking about the silence and that. Oh yeah, so we get the crazy explosions and all that's awesome. And then we get then it's back to Rose, Rose, Finn, and Phasma, and there's explosions all over the place now because
they were about to get their head chopped off. Rose and Finn were about to get their head chopped off by the executioners.
Yeah.
And then that's when everything exploded, and they were able to get away. Well, then BB-8. Oh, that was so awesome.
So now it's complete chaos. I don't quite like how they did the shot where here comes Phasma with the troopers. She was just there. Where did she go? I don't remember her.
She might have gotten blasted away.
It's possible. Now her armor is clearly really strong. Yeah. I mean, the blaster bolts were getting deflected off that armor. We saw that, so that was pretty cool.
And that was a shot from the trailer where we see her, with troopers behind her, and coming through the smoke, which I thought was going to be when they, when Poe's X-wing blew up. I thought it was going to be all that, but I was completely wrong about that.
Another good editing trick. Yep. Yeah, it was neither one because we were talking about whether it was that or after we saw the temple on fire or whatever. Because they were like, "Oh, is that?" It was neither one of them, of course. So this did bring me up for. I did have something I wanted to talk to about this. So Phasma may not have died. Okay, now I may have said this before, but
I don't buy it.
Listen. I watched too much Game of Thrones, and we've already established Boba Fett is probably going to be alive. Okay, after Sarlacc pit.
But they have already given us explanation. I think that they just dropped the ball with Phasma. I think that that's a character that they underused.
Maybe.
I think that she could have been a much better character, a much more dynamic character. I think there's many places that they could have used her that they didn't in both movies, not just the Last Jedi, The Force Awakens as well.
I'm still going to make the case. Here's my case.
Okay.
All right.
Go for it.
She's got the super armor that is clearly much more protective than the plastic that First Order troopers are wearing.
Right.
The fall is not nearly as far as you might think it. All right. I didn't notice this until my cousin-in-law Cynthia pointed this out. You can see an AT-AT down there. That fall is survivable, and it's very possible that she could have found a ship on that deck below where she landed. I've watched too much Game of Thrones, man. I don't see a body. I'm not 100% on board.
As much as I'd love to see Phasma come back because she was so underused, I think that there's way too many other characters that they need to do things with in the next movie that I think that it would be a detriment to the next movie.
Sure.
But
I'm not saying she's got to appear in the next movie. I'm just saying she's not necessarily dead, and they could easily bring her back in some other kind of media.
I'd be okay with that. I would totally be okay with that. I say that. I mean, if they do that, it would be very disingenuous. I hate when they do that stuff in movies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost disingenuous, especially for such a minor, who ended up being such a minor character. I say a minor character, they gave her a whole book for crying out loud in a six-episode comic. I don't understand why they underused her so much.
Yeah, and maybe she is dead. We're never going to see her again, and that's fine too. But I'll always have this little glimmer that maybe Gwendolyn Christie is still...
we got to see her eye.
Yes.
That was cool.
Yes. Yeah. But I don't like the whole I'm here thing, and then he smacks her with the baton or whatever. Right. Why the heroes always go to announce that they're there? Right. Why do they do that?
Yeah, that's kind of silly.
You just ruined your surprise.
What he should have done was smacked her and then said, "I'm here."
right.
But it was still pretty cool. And the whole, you always were scum. Rebel scum.
Yeah.
That, like we talked about earlier, that's what he finally says, I am part of this. This is me. I am now, gonna do whatever it takes to be a part of this. Yeah. And we see it on Crait.
Yeah, he's resigned to it at that point. Yeah. So anyways, then we get what I think it's funny, but it's also a great scene because it kind of continues a tradition of, and actually I'm going to touch on something else as well. It continues a tradition of droids being kind of saviors at some points, during this series, and BB-8 comes busting out with an AT-ST and just going to town on these guys. And that was awesome. Now the top kind of falls off of it. I don't know if it was under maintenance or it just got shot off. Right. And we see BB-8s rolling around and they're controlling this thing, and everyone, of course, in the theater is losing it, right?
It was a great scene. It was a great scene.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I like that, right? Because here's the droid saving the day, and it's almost kind of like that torch being handed off. But
my first thought was that it was DJ in there. And then when they revealed it as BB-8, it was really funny. It was cute.
Yeah. So now, in every single Star Wars movie we've had, R2 has saved the day in somehow.
Sure.
You could make an argument that he has saved the day somehow in every single Star Wars movie. And that continued again in this one, even as small of a part as he had.
Playing the Leia.
Yeah, he played the, help me Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope hologram. And, Luke's that's a low blow. Yeah. But again, it spurred Luke into action,
it did,
right?
It did.
Sure. So it was kind of, again, had R2 not done that, what, he would have never done anything,
Potentially, yeah,
so I kind of like how that kind of streak was kept alive. And I don't know that that's something they're actually trying to do, but you can find something in every movie where he's saved the day. So I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah.
So now we're on Crait.
Yes.
Everybody's on Crait.
Or what's left of them.
We've got a couple dozen Resistance fighters left, and that's it.
Yeah.
Finn and Rose and BB-8, get in by the skin of their teeth before they close the doors.
Yeah, they take like the Imperial shuttle or whatever, and
so they get in before the front doors are closed, and all the Crystal Foxes and everybody's shut up in this thing, and you get the Force, the First Order with those M6s, the Mega Walkers.
Oh man,
impressive.
I love how they have the AT-ATs down there next to them.
And they're tiny.
Yeah,
I mean, those things are impressive, and the little tug vehicles that are tugging that huge blaster.
Yes,
the miniature Death Star blaster thing.
Yeah, it's basically what do you call those things?
Well, they called it miniaturized Death Star technology. This rocket or whatever you want to call it, the laser thing.
But it's like it's basically like the New Age battering ram, right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah, that's right.
Because that's essentially what it is. We need to take this door down. Like in the Dark Ages, you would be using this like wooden log battering ram, and it looks like that when they bring it out. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. And so they've got these basically these skid craft things that
they have a name for them.
They're so beat up and old. It's like literally remnants of what was kind of left over from that base.
And we see those, apparently, from what I've heard, we see those in the Stormer Crait one-shot comic.
Okay.
And we get more information about those in there.
So I guess not everything's blown up on Crait, right? Because they kind of destruct it before they leave and Leia, Princess of Alderaan. Yeah. So I guess there's some stuff still available, including this kind of hangar thing.
Right.
So either that or they build it back up at some point. But anyways, they've got like 8 or 9 of these craft, not many of them, and they are falling apart, and they're like trying to create some time or whatever.
Goes to the bottom of it.
Yeah, he's like, what the heck? Yeah, that was great. That was so funny. Yeah. And they realize fairly quickly, and this is where Poe's turnaround is. Like, this is where he doesn't make the same mistake again.
He learned his lesson, right?
Yeah, and he orders them all to turn back. And this time, Finn's the one that's not going to turn back because he's so on board that he just wants to, be able to kill all of the First Order in one shot, I guess. So.
Yep. And he basically puts his ship on a suicide path directly towards the
it's like this Death Star. Yeah, it's basically like you said, a miniature Death Star thing.
That's what they called it. They called it was miniaturized Death Star technology.
Yeah, so basically it's a beam that's going to get shot out of this thing towards the iron door that's preventing the First Order from coming in and killing the rest of the Resistance. So he's going to go right down the center of it. And I was more sold on Finn than Leia dying at this scene because I saw this spot and I thought
he was done.
I was like, oh man, he's bowing out.
I thought he was done.
Yep.
And I thought that would have been a beautiful end for him. Because now we're going to have to deal with Finn in the next movie. What are we going to what's Finn going to do in the next movie?
He's going to be another job. They need leadership.
I don't know. It might have been better to just kill him off. I don't know. We'll see what they do with him.
I don't know.
We'll see what they do with him. But before we get to that point, we missed the whole Falcon flying in with Chewie.
Yeah. So the Falcon comes in to take the TIE fighters out, right? Because they're getting shot at by TIE fighters. That's what kind of causes them to go all over the place. Yeah. So they come out. They take like 3 in like one shot or something,
and then they take off, and all the TIE fighters follow. If it's they hate that ship.
Yeah, that was a great line. Yeah, because that he's speaking from experience from being in the First Order and how much problems that ship has caused them in the
he's
past.
been on the other side of that as well when he was inside it, running from the on Jakku.
Yeah,
so, absolutely.
So anyways, that was really fun.
So then they end up taking out all the TIE fighters, and they park the Falcon behind the big cave.
Yeah, we kind of find out where they go at the end, but they're kind of taking them through these caverns. And actually, in D-Box, that was a really fun ride.
It was because they did
you were turning with the Falcon and everything.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And we got a good 2 to 3 minutes of just nothing but Falcon chase and TIE fighters, and that was great.
Yeah, really great
we got the Porgs. I can't believe it. First time
Chewie
we mentioned
knocked
the
Porgs. It out of the way.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I was concerned that the Porgs would be overdone. I don't think they were overdone at all. I think
it was fine.
Now, I did make the prediction that Chewie would eat a Porg, and I was so close.
You were very close. He
almost ate that
He roasted 2 Porgs.
The whole time he had that Porg in his hand, I'm thinking, do it. And he was so close. Yeah, I was wrong.
And they had the sad eyeballs and everything.
Oh, you should have heard my son Gray both times. Yeah. Oh. Gray. He's a big lover.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Now
they both have Porg pillows they got for Christmas. They're Porg crazy.
So and this is another minor criticism I have, but there is no way that Rose turns away, goes back, and then manages to turn all the way back around and head, and then get Finn coming from the side.
He had that thing going full speed. There's no way she could call back up with him.
Yeah, and there's no way. And that's one of those, like, what do you call it? Poetic license, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes you have to fake physics for a movie to do what it did. So what he's talking about is basically Rose saves Finn's life. She crashes into the side of his ski whatever thing right before he goes into the maw of this giant laser and saves his life. Yeah. And then she says, well, we do that for the things we love or something like that. And, obviously now
we don't fight. Yeah, we don't fight. We don't fight them to kill them for hate or whatever. We fight them
to save the ones we love.
To save the ones we love. Yeah.
And then
we don't kill the ones we hate. We save the ones. Yeah, that's it.
And then she kisses him.
Right.
And
but then she passes out. And then
it was a great moment. I'm kind of glad that we're that the whole Rey and Finn love thing is not happening, because I
didn't feel it was like that before anyway. I felt like it was more of a friendship.
Well, there were a lot of people that wanted to see it go there. I mean, and it certainly possibly could have.
Yeah, it could have.
So I'm and nothing against that. I just don't think that's the direction Rey needs to be going. Rey doesn't need a love interest. Rey doesn't need that right now in her life. I mean, she's got a bunch of stuff going on, and of course some people say, "Oh, now her and Poe are going to have a really." I hope not. I want Rey. Rey doesn't need a man. I mean, this whole we got to have
to be a Jedi is a solitary thing.
Right. Look, if you want to have the love story, make it Rose, make it Finn,
and
do that in episode 3. You've got it. Don't give Rey a boyfriend. Let Rey be just a badass. Yeah, I mean, let's just let her be who she is.
Yep. So completely on board with that. So Finn ends up getting her back, to the rest of the Resistance, and
Rose we're talking about. Gets Rose back.
Now right before this door blows off, I think it's right before the door comes off. Yeah, it is, because that's how he gets out there. So
Luke walked in, right?
Yeah. So Luke walks in,
and the first thing they say is, "How did he get in here?"
Yeah.
How did he get in there?
Right, exactly.
That should have been our first clue, right?
Right.
Yep. But it wasn't.
You don't think about it because you're just like, oh, snap, Luke's here now.
Right. Some other tunnel or whatever.
Right. So he gets in there. He gives the thing that Rodger hates, the dice, to Leia.
Look, I don't hate the dice.
You just thought they could have done something better. They could have picked something better. I hate the fact that he hangs them from his
right,
like it's
mirror.
a rear view mirror.
I mean, come on. Again, that's something in our universe.
Right.
I
get that.
I love the dice. Those were the dice that he won the Millennium Falcon with. We're playing Sabak with Lando. That they've confirmed we're going to see in the Solo movie.
Yeah.
I love that the dice mean something. They're meaningful.
Right.
Don't hang them from your freaking rear view mirror. Yeah. That's the only thing that threw me off with it.
I can understand though, like if they're like, all right, well, we need some physical item to to identify him by or whatever, because you can't do his blaster, can you?
Right.
It's kind of down at the bottom of a. It's non-existent anymore because the planet exploded.
And I think that the dice are a good representation of that. I just don't. They could have put them anywhere else, and I would have been much happier.
Right. Like it's in a drawer somewhere or
whatever.
Yeah.
But that was my only issue with it. But so he puts them on, and so Leia, when he touches her hand, she looks at him with this look of understanding. I didn't catch it the first time. I caught it the second time we saw it. Right. She has this look of understanding. She knows at that point that he's not real. Even though she's holding these dice in her hand, she knows that they're not real. She can feel it.
Right.
And I didn't know. Well, I noticed that he looked like he had shaved, but I didn't notice the color change.
The color, yeah.
And I didn't notice that
until later. I didn't really
notice
that until later either, yeah.
But what I did notice was the foot, when he slid his foot on the salt.
Yes.
I noticed that immediately the first time I saw it. Yeah. A lot of people didn't. I saw it. I mean, it was clear at that point because they gave you 2 or 3 different setups.
So they had the guy. So we got to talk about this too. Yeah. So the guy, when they're first like down on the planet, the Resistance guy's in his bunker. And he like moves the salt.
Gareth Edwards, by the way.
Yeah, with the guy next to the guy that talks is Gareth Edwards.
Right. Yeah.
So the guy, he like moves it, and you see the red underneath, and he like tastes it, and he's like salt. And that was like a direct smack to like the haters out there that are all salty.
Salt. Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was great. But yeah, they give you these clues. You see these things before Luke makes his appearance outside of the store. So he walks out, and they're like. Kylo's just like everybody fire on that guy. Like, he just has so much hate for Luke, He just, everybody fire down on him.
And they fired for a good 30 seconds or so. It was great. It was a really cool shot.
Yeah, Hux is like, I think you've got him, kind of thing. Which made it all the more awesome when he comes out. And then he does, he brushes his shoulder when he comes out. And that's going to be memed, and I can't wait for that meme to come out because I'm going to overuse that one to death.
Of course.
So that was pretty cool. And that's when he's like, all right, put me down. Yeah. We're going to get the final battle here, before he realizes what's going on. Yep. I thought that was really neat. So they get out there, and so they talk first, right? And Luke, I don't really get the sense that Luke's trying to apologize here. He's just kind of like, no, I'm just going to let you do your own thing because...
Well, he already told Leia that I'm not here to save him. That's not what I'm here for. Here. And we find out, of course, what he's there for is to distract everybody, so everybody, distract the First Order so everybody else can get out.
Sure.
But he's not there to try to save Kylo. He's not there to make amends with Kylo.
Yep. And distract, he does.
Well, and some people made this case. Luke shows back up looking exactly like he did when Kylo knew him.
When he knew him,
right. He has the same lightsaber when Kylo knew him. Of course, that lightsaber is destroyed now.
The hair is darker.
I didn't pick up on the lightsaber. He used the lightsaber that Kylo and Rey had destroyed earlier. I didn't catch that. Yeah. So he shows up, basically the way that Kylo last saw him, and he did that just to enrage, Kylo is what some people are saying, and I agree with that.
Yeah,
you want to tick somebody off. Hey, it's been a long time since I've seen you. I hadn't changed.
Right. Yeah. And just clearly drove him nuts. So he was swinging away, man.
Yeah, swinging.
And I love some of the moves we get with Luke, and I don't know if I would describe it as Matrix-like. Maybe the one where he goes down and it comes right across his head or whatever. I thought that was cool, but
I liked the move where Luke kind of does some kind of a pirouette away from it.
Yeah,
that was really that was a really cool. I mean, it shows how obviously it was a hologram, but it still shows how nimble he really is,
or at really least was projecting himself to be.
Right. Well, I think that he physically could have done that as well.
Right.
But it was still cool
if he was there in person. Yeah. So then, Kylo finally realizes what's going on here, right? He slices through him, but Luke's fine. And then he's like...
I thought we were going to see another Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
That was my very first thought. And then, no.
Yeah, so he gives him a little poke, and then he's like...
You can strike me down, but I'll be with you always.
Yeah,
just
and he
like
said,
your father.
Yeah, and he said
that was awesome.
Yeah, and he was also like you said, later, kid, or something, which was
see you later,
kid,
yep.
And that was very Han-like as well, because Han always called Luke kid.
Yep.
So
that was well done.
So that was cool, and there's truth to that as well. So we're all but certain Luke's going to be back in 9, probably as a Force Ghost. So. But it's not going to be just for Rey. I think he's going to be right there with Kylo as well.
I hope so.
Because that'll tie back to it'll tie back to the see you later, kid, because you are going to see me later.
I hope so. That would be really, really cool to see Kylo working, to see Luke working both of them.
Yeah,
I would love to see that. And there's still a lot of people think that that Kylo's completely on the dark side now. I don't know. It's very possible that he can come back to the light. Yeah. My issue with that is, though, now who's the bad guy?
Right.
Who's the big, strong bad guy that we have to defeat? It's got to be Kylo at the very end, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know. Where did Snoke come from? I mean, there are plenty of other dark side users, I'm sure, out in the universe.
Sure.
And Snoke was clearly much stronger than he was. Yeah. So, I suppose anybody could come along at any point. But, I don't know. So, anyways, we get that. And then... after that, the blaster shot's already gone through the door before Luke comes out, right?
So now the door's open.
Right, and he's basically afforded them a lot of time. So while he's out there fighting, they realize that he's out there distracting. He's not there to defeat the whole First Order, which is funny because that was a callback earlier in the movie. He's like, "What do you want me to defeat? Go out there with my
laser sword?"
Laser sword. Yeah, he called it laser sword
because he was making fun of it. It was great.
Right. Yeah, you want me to go up with my laser sword and defeat the whole First Order or whatever?
And the best part about that is that was George Lucas's original name for the lightsaber in the original scripts was laser sword. I love that callback. That was so great.
Yeah. So that was great. So they realized they're buying time or whatever, and then the they notice that the crystal foxes are gone.
Right.
So, is that something you wanted to get to?
No, we can get to it later. I'm going to make a note.
Yeah, so Poe's like, well, listen, and they realize that they don't hear the crystal foxes anymore, like tingling around, because they make like the sounds.
Right.
So
very crystalline sound.
Yeah, when they're running.
I really love those creatures. They were really so beautiful, so well done.
I want one. I want two.
Right.
So they see like one last one and kind of looks at him, very Lothcat like, not Lothcat, Lothwolf.
Yeah.
And
drawing them through the tunnels,
So.
But they didn't go into some kind of weird hyperspace thing.
And Poe's like, follow me. And then everybody looks at Leia, and she's like, what are you looking at me for?
Right.
You heard him.
Right. Typical Leia. And not just typical Leia, typical Carrie Fisher. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Carrie Fisher is Leia, and Leia is Carrie Fisher.
Right.
I mean, they're the same person. So
it's so great. Yeah. So they end up going back there, but then they end up hitting the... basically a rock slide. The little crystal fox is able to get through the little hole, and they can't fit through there. So they're like, all right, well now what?
Now we're screwed.
Yeah. So we see Rey again. Sorry. Yep.
Before we see that, we see Kylo coming in with some of the troopers and whatnot. And he sees the dice. And he picks them up, and then
they disappear in his hands.
Yep.
Yep. So
and that gave him a lot of understanding, I believe. Not just about, of course, he knew that Luke was a hologram, but also about, his father and so many. It's going to be interesting to see. Anyway, go ahead. I could go on for days.
So anyways, they get to this rock slide area, and they're like, all right, well, we know that the exit's here, but we can't get out, right? It's just a big pile of rocks. And it's another callback to earlier in the movie. I talk about where Luke says, oh, no, I think it's Rey says, and like you can lift rocks or whatever earlier in the movie or whatever. So they get to the Falcon, they trace the life activity on the other side of where that base was.
Because they see the crystal foxes,
they see all the foxes
out,
running out.
Yep.
So they put the Falcon down there, and she ends up using the Force to lift all these rocks out, so the still living Resistance members, the few that they are, can escape. And that was really funny because she's kind of like lifting rocks or whatever, It's just like another callback to that, and then they get out of there, and then we get they get on board, and then we get Luke. And
we see Finn, and because that's that's the first time they've seen each other in the movie.
Yep. And what else?
So then we go to Luke, I think, at that point.
We see the books later on as well.
Yeah.
The books for the Jedi books, and then we get to Luke, and like Luke's, you can see it's all taken out of him. Like he's like holding on kind of at this point.
Yeah, his face, he got the sweat. And that again, good acting. I mean, it's Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill's. He's fantastic.
Yeah, and then he disappears in Yoda Obi-Wan fashion.
Well, so he was wearing some ceremonial robes, I've read in one of the visual guides or something, these very ceremonial robes. There's going to be some callback to that at some point, I'm sure, something about that. But yeah, he basically does an Obi-Wan. He becomes one with the Force. Because... it's still not canon, but most people say that Obi-Wan died before, he gave himself to the Force before the lightsaber actually hit him.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because when the lightsaber hit the robe, it was empty.
It was already empty.
It was empty.
When the saber hit.
So he gave himself to the Force. Luke did the exact same thing. I think that he could have survived that if he really wanted to, because he was obviously clearly strong in the Force, but I don't think he wanted to at that point. He was done. And I love the scene with the two sons. Just like Tatooine.
Yeah. Where his journey started, it ended. So
that was so beautifully done. So beautifully done. Great callback. All right. I mean, there's so many great callbacks like that.
Yeah, very cool.
And then of course, Finn goes to get something out of his coat or something out of the Millenium Falcon, and you see the book. We just see a quick glimpse. I don't think you didn't catch it the first time.
Yeah,
the first time in the movie. I saw it the first time. So the book. So she does have the books. Those will come into play. In the next movie, of course. And
then we get the one of the last shots is the back on Canto Bite. And they're doing the story here's Luke.
That's a call back to the Luke Skywalker on the Road to the Jedi book, because that's basically what it is a bunch of kids sitting around telling stories about Luke Skywalker and his adventures and some of his tales. Most of them not true, or at least very stretched. Like one of the stories in the book was that he was on Jakku, that Luke was on Jakku, and actually pulled the Star Destroyer out of the sky to crash on Jakku. Yeah. So I mean, obviously that's not canon. That did not happen, but I didn't care for that book. It was okay.
Yeah.
But So yeah, you've got these three kids telling the Luke Skywalker
and they
story.
get the stable guy, the bad, like the mean guy
slave
comes
driver,
in. The slave driver guy. He comes in yelling at him, or whatever, and they kind of run out of there. And the kid grabs his broom up, but he does it with the Force.
Right.
And he's like looking down at the ring, which he got from Rose.
Right.
So so that's kind of like
and then he stands there in a stance. It looks very much like he's holding a lightsaber. That was so well done. Yeah. And so it makes you wonder, is this kid going to come back? Are they going to show us Rey starting a Jedi Academy?
I think it will be awesome.
Absolutely. I think that it will be. I think that we'll, because there's clearly going to have to be some time between this movie and the next movie. Leia's going to have died.
Yep.
That's not going to happen in a day. So this is going to be 5 years, 10 years in the future. By that time, Rey has started a school for Jedi, and she's training all these Jedi. And now the Resistance has built itself back up, and now they're ready for a final showdown.
Yeah.
That's what I think we're going to see in the next one. And I hope so, because that will be so awesome. Because now you've got a bunch of Jedi.
Right.
That's going to be cool.
That would be cool, because we're going to probably have a bunch of Jedi, and we're probably going to have a bunch of Knights of Ren, maybe.
Very possibly. I hope so. I hope we finally get to see the Knights of Ren and see what's going on with that.
Yeah.
But where would they have been during all this? I don't know. Maybe they're on a different mission.
Well, maybe he's doing his own training, Right. I mean, the First Order, they steal kids, essentially.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, so... the one thing I did want to talk about earlier that we didn't talk about, back on Ach-to, that circle in the floor of
we didn't.
Right, that is actually an image of the Prime Jedi, who is the very first Jedi. It looks very yin-yang-ish, because the first Jedi, apparently the Prime Jedi, was a little bit light and a little bit dark.
Okay.
So he kind of touched both sides of that. And there's a lot of that. I mean, Luke has clearly had some dark influences.
Sure.
And, of course, we even saw in Return of the Jedi he had some dark influences.
We see it with Rey in Force Awakens. I mean, the way she attacks Kylo at the end of that movie,
clearly dark.
It reminds me of Darth Maul.
Clearly dark. Absolutely. No question about it. And, of course, Luke calls her out on it. And, there's no question that's that whole light and dark. And I love that they're continuing on with that.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that earlier when we were on that spot. So where would you rate this movie in your Star Wars list?
On a scale of what?
Well, I mean, on a scale of, your favorite Star Wars movie to your least favorite Star Wars movie.
Okay.
I know. I mean, I said immediately when we walked out of the theater the first time that this was...
You said this was your favorite Star Wars movie.
I said that it very well could be.
Yeah.
I think I still stand by that.
Yeah.
Because... it hit so many of the right notes for me. I mean, me personally. It hit the funny. It hit the very emotional. It hit the callbacks. It hit the history, the lore. It hit the connections to so many other canon material. It just hit every single thing for me. And then you've got the visual beauty and the audio beauty of it. Were there some things that I might have done differently if I were a brilliant movie maker? Sure, but I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, I don't know. Let me see here. I feel like I owe everybody an answer because I would not give an answer when we came out of the theater because that was just too early for me. Yes. And it's been weeks now, and I've seen it twice. So, I can't say that it's my favorite one. What I can say is it's definitely in my top 3, and I am really happy with, and some people aren't, but you know what? They're haters and they can be haters.
They're just wrong.
I think that 2 of my 3 favorite movies have come out post Disney buy.
Rogue One,
and
Last Jedi. I would put Rogue One. I think I would put Rogue One in my top 4. I think I'd probably put it as number 4. For me right now, and of course this changes. I mean, this shifts all the time. But right now, I think that. And not because it's fresh, just because it hits so many of the right notes for me. I think The Last Jedi is my favorite. Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and then Rogue One.
Yeah, and I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. I really enjoyed Rogue One.
I did too.
Just because it's such a dark and dire. Yep. This is kind of how things are.
And it doesn't end happy. And Star Wars needed one of those.
Yeah,
because even at The Empire Strikes Back, things are dire, but it's still happy.
They're they're
all together. All the friends are together,
except for Han.
Except for Han, right? Well, but I mean, it's a not terribly sad moment.
Right. So yeah. Now, again, even though probably 2 of my 3 favorite Star Wars movies ever have been through Disney. Now, keeping in mind, of course, Lucasfilms This is really that they're all their writing.
Right. They're just carrying on the tradition.
Right. With that said, I am still seriously concerned about this Han Solo movie. Until I get through that, if I get through that and I think it was at least okay, then I'll be fine, I think, from here on out.
I have a lot of faith in Ron Howard because I've seen some of the things that he's been able to do. He's great.
Yeah.
Ron Howard is really good.
No, I agree with that.
I think that if anybody can save that movie, it's Ron Howard.
Yeah.
So while I'm with you, I'm trepidatious. I think that it's going to be okay. I think that it's going to be great.
I saw an article the other day saying we're going to get a trailer soon. I would hope so, guys. It comes out in a couple months.
My goodness, yeah, it's 4 months away?
Yeah.
We've got to get a trailer soon.
So
yeah, and of course we'll be absolutely talking about that trailer as soon as it comes out on this show.
Yeah, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about it, and it has nothing to do with Ron Howard.
No, it's because of the changes,
right? And honestly, you talk about things that take you out of a movie. The guy does not look like Han Solo to me, so he needs to pull the acting off, or I'm not going to be on board with it, and that scares me because I've been on board seeing the movie, every movie I've gone into. And I don't want to be like the haters because a lot of these people that say they don't like these movies, they're going into these movies looking for something to hate.
Right, of course.
Because I want to be the guy that's the naysayer. I want to be the first guy to say why this movie isn't good and get a bunch of attention and whatever. That's, that's your prerogative.
Like
whatever.
That. Of course, the whole Rotten Tomatoes score was, immediately, stupid low. I mean, of course, the critics loved it,
which was a hack, by the way.
Right,
So
it was bots doing it. Sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, I love the movie. I think it was fantastic, and as more things come out about it, I'm sure we've missed some things.
Sure.
I've read the 2 visual guides, the visual guide and the cross sections. I found a lot of stuff in there that we didn't talk about here. I'm sure we eventually will.
Yeah.
Any
other thought? I have one other thought I want to talk about.
Go.
I really found it interesting how they truly broke the physical plane with the Force ghosts and the Force itself in this
with
movie.
With the lightning coming down to destroy
with the lightning coming down. How Luke was powerful enough to make the dice and himself appear on a completely different planet like that.
Right.
How Snoke was able to make that connection.
Right.
How Snoke was able to use the Force on Hux. A lot of this stuff that really shows like there is a lot of power here, and it was definitely an expansion of power from what we really understand the Force to be.
Sure.
So I thought that was pretty significant. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And another cool thing, we got to see Snoke use Force lightning. However brief, but he got to use it on Kylo. That was pretty cool.
So I think that's about all I've got. I mean, what are we kicking at here?
No, I think we're almost 2 hours into it. We're over 2 hours. But at this point, I mean, I think we've done it its due justice. We'll definitely come out with more stuff as more information comes out. But next episode we'll go back to our normal format.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. Hopefully we'll have a trailer by then. So,
yes. Yeah, indeed.
So until next time,
may the non-initiation of Force be with you.
Thank you for listening to Resist the Empire. Find us online at resisttheempirepodcast.com and on Twitter at Empire Resistor. Never miss an episode by subscribing on any podcatcher or by going to resisttheempirepodcast.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.
Really? Let's not do that. Let's do...
Are you putting that to the top of the...
Yeah, it's The Last Jedi full spoiler review is just going to be the title of it. I mean, there's not really...
No, we don't need to get flashy with that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the cold intro because normally we got a whole bunch of things, different things to pick from, and this
let's just keep it simple. I'll just let you do the cold intro. We break down The Last Jedi. Yeah. Whatever. Just, I'm not picky. I think that, we can just keep this one simple because the whole format is simple.